July 21st, 2020, Glynn County Islands Planning Commission. The first thing we'll do is have the invocation and the pledge led by Commissioner Rooks. If you'll please stand.
Bow your heads. Father God, once again we pause to give thee the glory, the honor, and the praise. We thank you for the many blessings that thou hast bestowed upon each of us. Father God, I pray that thou will continue to lead and guide us in the path that thou will help us to go. Father, we thank thee for the many blessings that thou hast stored upon us. Lord, just can't thank you enough. Lord, as we journey through this pandemic, we pray that thou will be with us, that thou will keep us safe and bless us, that we will be considerate of one another, Lord, to keep ourselves safe as well as the fellow man. Father God, as we come to take care of the business of our community, we pray that thou will be in the midst and that we would make the best decisions overall for our community. And Lord, we pray that when we leave here, we would leave on one accord, with everyone agreeing to disagree and everyone disagreeing to his own. Father, we pray that thou will continue to lead and guide us. Lord, and as we finish the business of this commission, we pray that thou will bless and guide us safely as we journey home. These and other blessings we pray and ask in Jesus' name. If you will, let's do the pledge together. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Commissioner Rooks. Little housekeeping, there's restrooms in the back. The men's restroom is on the riverside of the building, and the ladies' restroom is over here on the roadside. There's also some water in the back and cups for you if you'd like to do that. First item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the regular meeting held May 19th, 2020. And Stephanie, I think we'll do each of these minutes separately. So the minutes of May 19, 2020. Is there a motion to approve?
I move we approve the minutes of the May 19th IPC meeting.
Second. A second by Commissioner Torres. I think Commissioner Kate is going to recuse herself. Is that right? Can recuse herself because she was absent from that meeting. So all in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. All opposed, and one abstention. Also approve the special call joint planning commission work session minutes of May 27th, 2020, subject to any necessary corrections.
So moved.
There's a motion. There's a second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Torres. All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. All those opposed, and all those who abstain. All right. Ms. Janice, you have that? All right.
Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to add an item to the agenda just to get staff to update us on the status of the Envision Glynn ordinance rewrite process.
All right. We can hear that at the end of the meeting after the last item is heard. Is there a second to that motion? Second. Ms. Kate? All right, all in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. All right, it's done. Thank you. All right, the first item is a public hearing zoning decision, ZM 4299, St. Simon's Art Museum rezone. Consider a change of zoning request from Village Mixed Use and Island Preservation District to Planning Development District and Island Preservation Design Review District for property located at 513 Beachview Drive, 315 15th Street, 108, 118, 124, 130, and 140 Pier Village Market, 300, 308, and 310 Mallory Street, and 508 Oglethorpe Avenue. Parcel number 04-04653, 04-04652, 04-10230, 04-11659, 04-07017. The applicant proposes to construct a 20,000 square foot art museum. James A. Bishop, agent for Sandy Vacation LLC, owner. All right.
Chairman, I'm going to have to accuse myself of conflict.
All right, thank you. Ms. Lee?
Great. Good evening, Commissioners. Stephanie Leaf, Planning Manager. This is ZM 4299, St. Simon's Art Museum rezone. So the map that is on the screen, this does show the current property. There are several parcels involved, basically three separate properties. One is the kiosk that you're familiar with. The second is a commercial building, and the third is currently a single-family home. And their proposal is to demolish the existing buildings and build a new art museum that would be approximately 20,000 square feet. And currently the zoning is village mixed use and island preservation design overlay district. And they are looking to rezone to planned development and keeping the property though in the island preservation design overlay. Because the entire parcel is, or the entire property that the project is on, is less than 3 acres, according to the Glynn County zoning ordinance, planned developments that are under 3 acres are required to have a site plan that is part of the PD, that's approved as part of that PD. And that site plan is valid in perpetuity along with the PD. So any future changes to the property would actually have to go through the rezone process again and officially change that PD and the site plan that goes with it. So currently the existing zoning of village mixed use does allow an art museum. So art galleries are allowed as a use, and so the art museum is considered as part of the art gallery definition. So that being said, currently the use is allowed as currently zoned, but the applicants are looking to rezone to PD to allow some modifications to some of the zoning regulations to allow some flexibility in the development of the parcel. So currently, as I mentioned, the VMU does allow a large variety of uses. A lot of those uses are going to stay as part of the plan development text that they are proposing. In terms of parking, the proposed plan development text does outline 1 space per 400 square feet of museum floor area that's open to the public, and the current zoning would be 1 space per 70 square feet. So they are looking to have more flexibility in parking. They're currently showing 10 parking spaces on their plan. And so the plan development text does include some other language about basically being able to credit the site with the parking standards from what's there currently, as well as allowing on-street parking to count into what spaces are allocated to the site. So there's just a lot of kind of flex that's built into that PD text that they're proposing. And also with landscape buffers, the proposed PD text is proposing a 3-foot wide buffer adjacent to the public rights of way. Currently, the zoning code in the buffer section under section 613 does require a 10-foot wide buffer, a type E buffer that would be adjacent to the public rights of way. So given the existing development in the village and just having a little bit more compact, closer to property line development that's currently there, their proposal, they'd like to kind of mimic more closely what's already out there instead of having 10-foot buffers when other buildings do not have that. And also another section, the vision clearance at street intersections. The proposed PD text is to eliminate that on a corner lot. Currently, the zoning code under section 615 states that no obstructions within 30 inches and 10 feet above finished street level within 25 feet of the intersection. So again, they'd like to be able to develop further into the intersection and not be restricted by that clearance requirement. So as part of rezone requests, we do look at the comprehensive plan and how it fits in. The future land use map does show that this area is neighborhood commercial, so the current rezone proposal is in compliance with the comprehensive plan. So here's the property. This is a survey showing where the property is located, the corner of Beachview and Mallory and Oglethorpe. This is a plan that shows the proposed demolition on the site. And then this is the proposed site plan. And as I mentioned, the site plan does go along with the PD. They're showing the proposed 20,000 square foot building. And then at the corner of Beachview and 15th Street, where the single family home is currently located, they are showing some open space, outdoor gathering area. And then the parking spaces that they are showing come off of 15th Street and also Oglethorpe. This on the screen is the tree protection plan. And this is their proposed landscape plan. And then these are their conceptual building elevations, including some color, material of what they're proposing for the exterior of the building, and then also a conceptual floor plan layout. And then this is the irrigation plan that is required under village preservation. So your Planning Commission action is to recommend approval. This is a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. So you could recommend approval of the proposed zoning decision, recommend approval with conditions, defer action, or recommend denial of the proposed zoning decision. And then these are your possible motions. And I'm happy to answer any questions, and I know the applicant team is here this evening if you have any questions of them. Thank you.
All right. Commissioners have any questions of staff? All right, before we hear from the applicant, I'm going to remind everybody of our meeting procedures. The Island Planning Commission considers applications for site plans and village preservation permits. In addition, the Island Planning Commission considers requests for rezonings, conditional and special use permits, and ordinance amendments. The Planning Commission makes final decisions on site plans and village preservation permits, and it makes recommendations to the Board of Commissioners on rezonings, conditional and special use permits, and ordinance amendments. The Island Planning Commission allows public comments for site plans and village preservation permits. The Commission holds public hearings for rezonings, conditional and special use permits, and ordinance amendments. The planning staff presents the application request to the Planning Commission during the staff's report. This report evaluates how the proposal conforms to the Glynn County zoning ordinances and other applicable regulations and conforms to the comprehensive plan when applied to zoning matters and ordinances. Applicants shall have the opportunity to present their request to the Planning Commission. It is the responsibility of the applicant to make presentation on requests and address any conditions or factual findings with which they do not agree. Public hearings and public comments will be limited to 30 minutes for each opposing side, with a maximum of 5 minutes allocated to each speaker. Comments are to be limited to relevant information regarding your position and should avoid being repetitious. If your group has a spokesperson, please allow that individual to present your group's position in the time allotted. The applicant may then provide a rebuttal to any testimony. The chairman may terminate testimony if it becomes repetitive. The chairman will terminate a speaker's time if the speaker begins personal attacks. Your cooperation in this process will be greatly appreciated. And if you have cell phones, if you'll please silence them. And all right, at this time, if the applicant would like to come forward, you'll state your name.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jim Bishop, and I represent the applicant here tonight. In order to be better understood, if it's okay, I'll just leave this on the side for the time being. Let me say at the outset that when I first met with the applicant to discuss this project, his instructions to me were that I want to be totally transparent. This is something I would like to do because I think it's something that would be beneficial to the community. I have done something similar to this out in Denver, which he has, and make sure that we crossed all the T's, dotted all the I's. We had an initial meeting with Pam Thompson and Stephanie Leaf, and at the meeting, they said, you can probably do this under current zoning. And I said, well, we may be able to do that, but my preference is to make sure that we, again, cross the T's, dot the I's, completely transparent, in a completely transparent way, made sure we have done everything that we need to do, so let's move forward with the plan development zoning text. I would also like to say that I've been doing this kind of stuff a long time in our community, and I have never experienced the level of commitment, support, and responses, total responses from all of the members of the staff of the Planning Commission. They have been wonderful to deal with, making sure, again, that we told them that we want to make sure we're totally compliant with everything that we need to comply with, especially in the sensitive area of the village. And they've been terrific to work for. So my hat's off to Stephanie, to Pam, for working with us and with other members of the county staff that had anything to do with the development of this project in the village. Let me introduce our team here tonight. Let me say that Bill Edenfield, one of the most respected planners in our community, I think, is not well. He's at home, otherwise he would be with us tonight. He's here in spirit and wanted to know that if we needed him, he's available by telephone. We're very blessed in our community to have excellent consultants. I don't know what other communities are like, but I know what our community is like, and they are uncompromisingly qualified and are well prepared to represent anybody's interest anywhere. Jonathan Roberts, who is a respected engineer here and elsewhere, will probably be making the main presentation tonight, has done the engineering work and has made sure that he's worked closely with the county staff. Nate Brock and his wife, Leanne, who is out here, have been the architects, and they actually have been to Denver and seen our applicant's museum in Denver. So I thought it would be good to have them here tonight to answer any questions that he might have. And Gary Neville, I honestly think that Bobby was initially involved in this before Bobby died. Gary was out right there with it. And who can have any project in Glynn County without the able services of the surveying team at Shoup Surveying? So they have done an excellent job of all this whole team in making sure, again, that we've been fully compliant, and we think we have. Now, members of the Planning Commission, you all have heard about this, I'm sure, maybe ad nauseum, I'm not sure, but a lot, from me and from others. And if there are questions that you need answered, we're here to make sure that you get full answers to all the questions you may have, although I suspect that you receive more answers than you possibly ever wanted. So, having said that, I would like to do one thing. Just before I left to come down here tonight, I got an email from Millie Wilcox, who is a respected artist in our community. I've never talked to Millie Wilcox about this project. Her mother's a legend, and she is too. But she said, "Dear Jim, would you be kind enough to send me the name of the person I should speak with regarding the new museum to house works that her mother had done, which have become very rare indeed, and one of which is hanging in the Louvre over in Paris." So I didn't have a chance to respond to her, but I thought it would be of some interest to you that, anyway, we have respected artists in our community that have a real interest in displaying their art as well. So having said that, Jonathan?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, is mask on or off for tonight? Does it matter?
Whatever's easy for you.
Prefer to have it off, if that's okay. Thank you for your time tonight. The site plan has undergone a lot of scrutiny over the last months, about 8 months in the making, the picture of which is on the screen at the present. And there are a few things that I'd like to go over. One is the amount of open soil area, the amount of green space. It's more than doubling for the proposed plan compared to the existing. Existing has the kiosk and the commercial building and a lot of buildings and parking, a lot of buildings and hard surfaces. This proposes more than twice the amount of green space. The utilities are available along Beachview and will be accessed through a short connection on Beachview. The detention is likely not to be required because of the impervious area reduction, but if we do need to do detention, we can do underground storage underneath the parking area. The county staff has asked us to extend Oglethorpe Avenue, which we have shown to the point of the new parking area. So staff has done a lot of work on this, and it's compliant with the engineering, planning, public works, fire, all the departments that typically review, and we're certainly happy to answer any other questions that you may have. And I think that Mr. Brock may want to briefly speak about the architectural component.
Thanks, Jonathan. Thank you. Really, I guess one thing I'd like to say is that when we were first engaged by Mr. Anschutz on this project, it was very exciting.
Try to speak up.
It was very exciting for us, obviously, and the first thing we did was head out to Denver to see his existing museum, which is the American Museum of Western Art, and we were truly impressed. It's a incredible collection, and I would recommend that anybody look it up online and take a look. It's considered the finest collection of Western art. He is from the Midwest and a historian, which it's a dear interest to him. He's written a couple of books, scholarly books on the subject of westward expansion, and the museum it became the repository for his collection over the years. I think it's incredible that he has now fallen in love with this area, and his interest historically and his research has shifted focus to over here, and he wants to tell the story of the East Coast all the way down to coastal Georgia, St. Simon's Island in particular, and this has been the focus of his recent work, and this is going to be the home for that collection that he's putting together now. And if it's anything like the museum out west, it'll be something that our families can enjoy, visitors can enjoy, school children. There's a modest fee to enter, and school tours are arranged for free. My understanding is that's going to work the same way here. It's just an incredible opportunity to bring some incredible art to the area in another venue in the village.
We are prepared to answer questions if you would have any, whatever
Okay.
you all would wish.
Thank you. Commissioners? If you'll raise your hand so we can see you, then you can speak.
I'd like to go back to the beginning and understand the reasons for requesting a PD versus leaving it as a village mixed use.
Jonathan, you want to answer that question?
Sure. The existing village mixed use allows for an art gallery, and the definition of art gallery is somewhat unclear. This is a museum, and we wanted to do the PD text to make it 100% clear that we're doing a museum, that it is allowed, and that it doesn't come down to just the definition of an art gallery. And then there are some modifications to the existing zoning that are proposed that have been outlined in the staff report. But those are the main reasons.
And Mr. Rice, let me say that in addition to that, we thought about it, we spoke with the planning staff about it, we decided that, again, in order to be totally, completely, absolutely transparent with what we perceived and believed we wanted to do down there, the plan development zoning text methodology was the way that we wanted to go, so everybody would know, and so there would be no confusion with anybody, and it wouldn't be any circumstance that anybody could complain about. So that was a conscious decision that we made.
I appreciate your transparency or your desire for transparency. I'm not sure why maintaining the village mixed use and asking for variances where you need them is any more or less transparent. My biggest concern is that establishing this as a PD sets a precedent for the village that to me is inconsistent with the character and the design of the village. The things that you're asking for may or may not be appropriate, the variances or the changes in the PD. But I'm interested in understanding why some of the other changes that you proposed in the PD are not what you talked about here. Why were some of the uses eliminated? Why were other uses not eliminated? Why isn't the use, if you want to go with the PD, restricted to the art museum?
Yeah, the author of the PD, Bill Edenfield, is unavailable tonight because of his, he was exposed to COVID and his quarantining, but He and the owner discussed what allowable uses they wanted at a lengthy discussion, and Bill would be the one that would have to describe how they arrived at the proposed uses today. But it is fewer uses than is allowed in village mixed use, but there are other uses other than museum that's included.
And I would say that I think they collaborated with the staff as well, Mr. Ragsdale, in order to end up with the product that they ended up with. Again, I will tell you, I've never seen such cooperation in my many years of practice here to make sure that we were, again, on point with what we wish to do and compliant with the way the staff wished for us to proceed with this.
You mentioned, and put it the museum down in the village area, that it will enhance that area. Can you tell me how it will enhance it?
Well, we believe, but talking with many of the merchants in the village, anyway,
Yeah, we're not in public hearing at this time.
Anyway, we believe that this, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. We believe that the development of this museum would really enhance the village area, and not only the exterior but the interior as well. I've never developed many museums. I was born and raised in Alma, Georgia. We didn't have any museums in Alma, but most of the museums, as I understand it, are sponsored by private individuals that reflect what they wish to be the vision of the benefactor. But what really, in my view, what really counts is what's going to happen on the inside of that, and that's what we believe would be an enhancement to the area as well.
Any other questions or comments from the commissioners? All right, thank you. All right, we'll now go into public hearing. And if there's anybody who'd like to come up and speak opposed to this application, if you'll come and state your name. And you have 5 minutes. Yeah, step at the podium.
My name is Dick Wiederhorn. I'm a resident of Glynn County. When I first heard about this project, I thought, well, somebody must be kidding. And I'm sure there's some good points about it. In fact, I've looked at some of the pictures, the artwork that's in the museum in Denver, and they're pretty nice, I'll give you that. But the building in Denver looks nothing what we're talking about here, nothing like it. Greek Revival architecture? I had to look it up. I had to Google it, see what it really was. And I said, my God, they're going to build the White House here on St. Simon's Island. I don't get that. Now, is that what Mr. Can't pronounce his name, and I should be more sensitive to that with my name. But maybe it reflects what he'd like to see, but that will not fit in the village. We have an eclectic selection of Lord knows what down there, and that's what it is, for better and for worse. This will not fit aesthetically. It's laughable. My second point to oppose it is this planned development business. You heard Mr. Bishop himself say it could be done with the current text. My response would be, then do it, because what they want out of planned development will make it even more objectionable. They want to eliminate a lot of possibilities. They want to extend this, less parking, less buffer, less sidewalk clearance, et cetera, et cetera. Would they have proposed this at all if they can't get the planned development? Or will they do it if they cannot get the planned development? I think they won't do it. And that shows you how badly they need it. So it just, now if they want it, and by the way, I drove all over St. Simon's Island. I couldn't find another example of Greek revival architecture. There may be some houses that look like it, but it doesn't work here. If they could change the design of the building and work in the current zoning classification, I suppose I would remove my objections. But I don't think they're going to do that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'm Julian Smith. I live on St. Simon's Island, and I've enjoyed visiting dozens of art museums on 3 continents. And I would like to visit the Anschutz Museum of Western Art further to the west, in Brunswick, on the mainland. Mr. Anschutz is offering us a wonderful gift, and I hate to look gift horses in the mouth, but I'm going to ask you to look this one in terms of a gift to St. Simon's. As proposed, this museum simply does not belong on St. Simon's, and I encourage you to recommend to the Board of Commissioners that they deny this zoning change. If this museum is built and if it is successful in drawing art lovers to the village area, it will exacerbate some of the parking problems we now have. If it is built and it is unsuccessful, it will take up land on which a higher and better use might be, for instance, a grocery store or a pharmacy that would be of use to the many island residents who live within easy walking distance of the village. Whether or not this museum is successful or unsuccessful, and this museum and this application will not comply with the stipulation in the first article of our zoning ordinance because it will not encourage, quote, the appropriate use of land, unquote. In fact, the application before you proposes to remove both a grocery store and a pharmacy, as well as other uses from the list of permitted uses in the village mixed-use district. The design of this museum will not, quote, protect the historical and architectural character, unquote, of the nearby village area as required by the Island Preservation District Ordinance. Although Mr. Anschutz is a very well-respected supporter of climate change denial, and should be commended.
Mr. Smith, you could just hold your comments to the project and not persons. Thank you.
He should be commended for putting some of his money where his mouth is, for putting millions of dollars worth of art within a short distance of the Atlantic Ocean. I encourage you not to let him risk the safety of that art. Although he may own the paintings and other artworks, he does not own what they represent, and he has an obligation to protect them, those artworks, from hurricane tidal surges. So let me return to my starting point, that this museum belongs on the mainland, perhaps in the downtown area, or perhaps on the east side of Highway 17, looking out over our beloved marshes of Glynn, another work of art. Although some of you may not yet understand why you should encourage good development on the mainland, I believe you should do so to take the pressure off St. Simon's by helping to make Brunswick a more attractive place to live, work, and visit. Thank you.
All right, anybody else like to speak in opposition?
Good evening. My name is Jim Frachet. I live here on St. Simon's Island. I'd like to second and concur with the statements of the previous two gentlemen who are up here and just emphasize 2 points. One is the apparent incongruity of the proposed structure to the village environment. There are plenty of Greek Revival structures and architecture around the island, most notably the Presbyterian Church down the street, but it is not consistent with village architecture or atmosphere or environment, and by size and also by design. The second thing is I'd also like to second Mr. Smith's suggestion that the appropriate location for this to the maximum benefit of the citizens of Glynn County would be on the mainland in Brunswick specifically. There would be a greater demand for this type of effort there. And being from Denver, I'm very familiar with Mr. Anschutz's museum and his good work in philanthropy and business that have benefited a lot of different populations in education, in health, and in other sectors of the economy which are important to us. I have a question, and I don't know if that's appropriate or if you can tell me, but the entity which would own and operate the proposed museum, is it a for-profit or a non-profit entity?
The applicant will have a chance to come up and answer any questions.
Okay. If it is a nonprofit, I'd like to suggest that the size of this particular property and its value means we can't afford it. We can't have another nonprofit, non-property paying, tax-paying entity of that size on the island, because it means that all the rest of us are going to end up basically paying that lost tax burden if it is a nonprofit enterprise. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Vincent Albo, live on St. Simon's for a few years now. When I first read about Mr. Anschutz buying properties in the village, I'm going to call it Sandy Bottom for some reason. Sandy Vacation, I apologize for that. Sandy Vacations is a luxury hotel operator. So my first thought was, okay, here comes a big hotel. And given with the upcoming zoning changes proposed, that it might even be 3-story, so I'd rather see an art museum than a hotel. So if there's some way we can be sure this doesn't become a hotel, I'm for it. Second point here, economic viability. Sandy Vacations has already spent $1 million for land, construction costs and so on. That's going to be something else. So if we're going to operate it as a museum, is that going to be economically viable, or is this going to be just a money pit somewhere down the road, that dilapidated building? So, yep, there's that point. And considering that operating as a museum, it might be eligible for tax exemptions. So again, there's that point to consider. And given that recently St. Simon's has been recognized as one of the top tourist destinations, coastal islands in the 48 contiguous states, is this something that's going to screw with the ambiance of the area? Would this make St. Simon's a better place, or take away from what we already have? Another point, this has to go with the transparency. Parking online today, I think it was the revisions from just a few days ago, claiming so much parking here. We have required minimum parking and this is an over 20,000 square foot, 20,000 square foot building. This parking thing has only listed 12,135 square feet, so there's another 7,800 square feet of space. I'm guessing most of that's going to be utility, but also under the commission's response to currently used commercial uses. And then there's something in there about limited residential space on the second floor. So I would like to know if there's actually residential space up there. Is that going to be rented space? What the heck is going on with that? So, and neglecting, like I said, 7,800 square feet, that's going to take that total parking spaces up a few places, but like somebody else said, parking already up there is a disaster, so I don't even know if that's a proper concern, that you would recognize anything way down the line. And last thing, it says it's a 2-year construction period. Do we want that kind of mess up in the village for 2 years? All right, thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else like to come forward, speak in opposition?
I'm Roland Daniel. I live here on St. Simons. And while I'm not at all opposed to the idea of the museum, I'm glad that there's a player, for lack of a better word. I'm glad that there's somebody who is strong and has a personal interest in our community to kind of step in and take the place of what Bill Jones used to do for us, which was kind of protect us. So I'm not at all displeased with the idea that there'll be a museum down here. I am not in favor of the current design. I would like to see the building be more in tune with some of the newer peaceful buildings that I see, the Jones Center and some of the others. I just would like to, that's my only objection.
Yes. Would anybody like to speak in favor of the application? Come forward. And Mr. Bishop, if you'd like to come up and answer those questions, your team, that have been raised by the public, I think that's appropriate.
Yes, sir. Which question would you like me to respond to, Mr. Chairman?
All right. Is this a nonprofit or a for-profit facility? I know I'm familiar with nonprofits. Not every nonprofit is exempt from ad valorem taxes, so I cannot answer the question about this. Maybe the attorney can, or Mr.
Well, that's kind of a question that a legal mind ought to be able to. I mean, somebody would be able to respond to that. The ultimate ownership of this is probably going to be, if you look, I'm sitting here counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 museums that are located in the vicinity. Most, one's on Jackal, well, actually 2 on Jackal, Coastal Georgia Historical Society. Now, my guess is those are non-profit. I don't know that for a fact, but my guess is they're non-profits. This one, I think, is going to be built and it's going to be funded and in perpetuity, so there won't be any responsibility on anybody except the ownership of this ultimately. And whether or not, and I don't know that the owners yet decided whether it be nonprofit or not, but it most probably will be. So it's like most museums are owned by a nonprofit, and that's the best I can tell you.
Well, most of those museums in this area are on public land, so they would be exempt. But this would be on private land.
Yes.
And I think Miss Wilcox, her mother's house on Frederica Road was turned into a museum, but I don't know if they turned it into a nonprofit, but I don't think that was tax exempt.
I don't know. I don't know
So,
the answer to
you know,
that.
just because it's a nonprofit does not mean it will go to the tax exempt status.
I think you're right about that.
Public land
Yeah.
and religious-owned land is tax exempt.
Right.
But,
One thing I would like to ask, Mr. Chairman, is that you have, as I understand it, you received letters of support from Bill Strother, one of the large merchants in the village, Pat Cooper, who is a very well-respected realtor and a property owner in the village, and Forrest Brown, who is a major property owner and a member of the Village Merchants Association that totally support this project. Is that something that's a matter of record?
If it has been sent by email or text, it would be, or email.
Yeah, and
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, we did not receive a letter. I have not seen a letter from Forrest Brown, but we did receive the other letters you mentioned.
Okay. Any other letters, Stephanie?
Yes, I actually do have a hard copy of the comments we received that I think is floating around on the commissioners, but I believe was it Mr. Hodges that submitted a comment?
Mike
that was-
Hodges?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
right, today. And I don't have that in front of me. But we did receive the comment from Ms. Cooper,
Right.
and yes, and I think Mr. Strother, that
Bill
one just
Strother.
came in about
Right.
5:30.
Okay.
Another question was limited residential space on the third floor.
Yeah, please.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, that's pertaining to the existing zoning and the existing building, so there was contemplation for that, but become a combination commercial and residential structure. The existing building that in this plan would be torn down, so the notes in the staff report referring to potential 50% residential is in reference to the existing use.
So there's no residential on this proposed
No,
project.
and there was also a good comment made about, how do you know that this would not become a hotel? Well, the site plan is tied to the zoning, so any change in use would have to come back before this board. So this is only a museum and can't be anything else except for your express future permission, which we don't anticipate. This is a museum project.
All right. The last question we have is how long construction phase?
Yeah, the 2 years is a very outer limit, and they're planning to bring in a large contractor that's used to doing development in downtown areas like downtown Savannah, and this will be a very minimally invasive project because it will have tight perimeter security. They've already got plans in place for lay-down areas, and although the construction schedule is 2 years, that also includes a lot of this planning, and we're 8 months into the planning already.
I think, to clarify that, it's not going to take 2 years once construction would begin.
No, it would not.
I think that was the question, really.
That, Mr. Chairman, that was a major concern of ours. Yates Anderson has gone to great extent to talk to contractors about how the construction would take place that would be minimally invasive to the village area.
Okay. Ms. Brooks?
I would like to know, has the properties in that area been purchased already?
Yes, ma'am. It's my understanding they have. Yes, ma'am. They already own the property.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
All right, we kind of jumped into this. I'm going to close the public hearing session, so that's over because we had no other comments. So, commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not familiar with some of the letters that have been referred to. If they came in today's email, could we get those read into the record or shared here in the public hearing?
And there is a hard copy of the letters, and I'm happy to read those into the record. I can approach and.
Okay.
Patrick, they may be in that stack there, but.
Okay, so the letters we've received, these are in support. First is from Pat Hodnett Cooper. Good morning. As I will be unable to attend the meeting tonight, I wanted to go on record to show my support of this new addition to the village on St. Simons. My real estate office at 520 Ocean Boulevard is just around the corner, and after previewing the plans, I see no reason why there would be any objections to this project. If you should need to contact me for further information, please feel free to do so. Best, Pat Cooper. Second is from Mike Hodges. In support, dear members of the IPC, as a 67-year resident of Glynn County and a 45-year resident of St. Simons Island, I write to you in support of the proposed St. Simons Art Museum. I've reviewed proposed plans and think this project would be an excellent addition to the village, a visual improvement to the property as it now sits, and an important cultural addition to our community, as well as our tourist venues. I, for one, am grateful to Mr. Anschutz for his generosity. Respectfully, Mike Hodges. Next is public comment in opposition. The first is from Michelle Maringer. Thank you, I appreciate it. This was in response to a comment she had for another project. I'm also opposed to the plans for Western Art Museum. Similar to the storage facility concerns, the intent is not congruent to the area. Western Art Museum with Greek-influenced architecture seems better suited for Colorado than St. Simons Island. From my perspective, the impact to village businesses, parking, and overall island appeal is at stake with this current plan is not just a little offbeat from the surrounding area, it is way off. I honestly do not know how much voicing these concerns will matter, as I read several comments on Facebook that Sea Island money always wins over resident opinions. However, felt wrong not to voice concern for the current intent with both of these plans for a place I love so dearly. Prior to moving here, we visited every quarter for 10 years. We shared our experiences with friends and family who also began to visit SSI regularly too. I am so saddened by these changes, especially during a time when so many other disappointments with U.S. pandemic, leadership, and other economic issues out of our control. My one solace has always been the simplicity of the beautiful island life we have created here. One thing that sets this place apart from other coastal towns is the intentional commitment to honor SSI's nature, history, and community. If we are not careful in planning, SSI will become the next Hilton Head, and that is not a good thing in my book. Appreciate your time and consideration. The next is from Jessica. The next comment is from Jessica Baxter. I am a longtime St. Simons resident and am deeply concerned about the planned demolition and redevelopment in the village. Approximately 15 local small business owners who found an affordable way to be in the village were either completely put out of business or forced to relocate. This was done so a billionaire from Colorado can build a 20,000 square foot Greek Revival style building to house his private art collection. Please don't let this happen. Also, the rezoning idea is horrible because it will lead to a free-for-all of future development. And Jessica Baxter submitted a second comment. Please do not approve this rezoning. Please do not allow a giant 20,000 Greek Revival style building where the kiosks are currently located. It is such a shame that over 15 local small business owners who found an affordable way to be in the village had to either be relocated or completely closed down. Also, during this time of COVID-19, you should really allow citizens to chime into your meetings virtually. The next is from JT. I do not have the full name. Good afternoon. We just saw the plans for the proposed museum in the village. For what our 2 cents are worth, we do not feel the architecture is complementary at all to the village, hoping the IPC feels the same. Also, would the landowner still pay property taxes, or do we lose those as well as the character of our quaint village? No need to reply. Thank you for your time. The next is from Lee Cook. I am one of the business owners that was summarily removed from your village market. Unfortunately, I'm in Atlanta, Georgia today and will not be able to attend the meeting tonight. However, do you want my voice to be heard? Please share the final paragraphs of this email letter with the Island Commission. Thank you, commissioners, for holding this session. My name is Lee Cook. I live at, and I'm redacting that because it's a personal address, Brunswick. I come to you today to express my concerns, along with the concerns of my friends and business neighbors, over the Pier Village rezoning. I moved to St. Simon in February 2019 to attempt to start over after the death of my wife and pursue my dream business, a simple sunglass hut near the beach. We called it the Shade Shack, and we were located in the Pier Village. I did very well for myself in my first summer. Things were looking up. My dog Roscoe and I were living the dream. Come August 2019, the rumors of Sea Island's acquisition of the Pier Village property became reality. As time continued on, we learned that our business would be destroyed to make way for a public art museum, which would do nothing more than house the private collection of billionaire Philip Anschutz. I'm not here to fight against art. My son is an artist. I recognize how important art is to the community. However, I'm going to question the logic of destroying small businesses, the Pier area, and the community by rezoning this land for the use of an art museum. A few years ago, the Pier area housed the Glynn County Visual Arts Museum. This project failed due to lack of traffic and was subsequently moved to its current location near the St. Simons Airport. With this reality, it feels to me as though this project is nothing more than a tax shelter for Mr. Anschutz. Speaking of taxes, I implore you to consider the tax revenue that the county will be losing out on from me and my 15 neighbors. We are small businesses, yes, but we provide roughly $90,000 a year to Glynn County, which happens to be more than twice the coroner's salary. The Public Art Museum would provide the county with zero income. Shall we cut the coroner and have bodies lie in the street? We could have a stunning public art piece for only half the cost. Sea Island and Mr. Anschutz are attempting to transform the pier. This transformation would not only chase away tourism, but disrupt local life and mar the beauty that the pier and St. Simons has to offer. If this project goes through, I wonder how long it will be until the pier is nothing more than a parking deck and an empty building housing a billionaire's art. So I ask you, is the American dream truly dead? Do we truly value a billionaire's tax haven over the hard work and dedication of the American people? People who are merely trying to create a better world for themselves and those around them. I ask that you hold this question in your hearts as you vote on this measure. Thank you for your time. And the final comment received before this meeting was from Evelyn Smith. I'm sorry, no, there is, I think, one more comment received. So this was received this afternoon from Evelyn Smith. I'm very disappointed in the proposed art gallery in the Pier Village. It does not fit its wonderful charm and is out of place there. Please deny this. I've lived here many years and understand progress, but this is not the area for this huge ornate building. Respectfully, Evelyn Smith. And there's one other that was received late this afternoon, if I can pull it up. Okay, this is from Bill Struther, and this is in favor of the project. Good afternoon, Bill Struther here. I am in the mountains and cannot attend tonight's meeting. I'm writing in support of Mr. Anschutz's project. I have seen the improvements he's made in Sea Island. It's first class, as is the Broadmoor. My family owns several properties in the village, and I think this would help the village as a whole. I hope you consider voting in favor. Thank you, Bill Struther. And that is all that's been received
All right,
as of right now.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, commissioners, any questions, comments?
I think a lot of the comments that have been made probably are more relevant to the site plan than the zoning decision that we're supposed to be talking about now. Staff has determined that the use that's proposed is allowable under the current zoning. One of the criteria for considering a rezoning is whether the economic use is achievable under the current zoning, and if not, that would be a reason for rezoning. If it's acceptable under the current zoning, I see no reason that the zoning should be changed. The things that they're asking for as changes in the PD can be accomplished if they're successful in getting variances approved, but I see no reason to approve the zoning change, which carries with it, to me, a lot more long-term ramifications that I find objectionable. Setting a precedent for the rest of the village by having a PD there, as well as the way they have carved up the PD, allowing certain things that, to me, I would not want to see there, and on the other hand, taking out some things that not only are probably okay, but already exist in the village.
Mr. Chairman, so one of my first questions in our conference about this with the applicant agent was about whether or not this is truly allowed in village mixed use, and it is. And we discussed the definition of art gallery and museum, and this is totally allowed within the current zoning. The design has to do more with the site plan. The parking, I definitely voiced that it blatantly does not fit the ordinances for a museum that states 1 parking space per 70 square foot of public area.
Anybody else? Would the applicant like to come and address any of that?
Only one thing. There was reference to those tenants in the kiosk. Whenever we decided to move forward with the project, we had a meeting of all the tenants, all of them, maybe with one exception, in my office, with the representative of the applicant, Gary Pearson. And I thought it was an excellent meeting. We talked about it. Their leases had already expired. We didn't have anything to do with that. That already happened before we bought the building, bought the property. And they said, this is what we would like. And the lease terms were extended. And as a moment of generosity from the applicant, they said, for a Christmas present, we'll give you the month of December free. We really had a good meeting with all of the tenants at that time. We thought and still believe that that was the case. Again, we didn't terminate that or have anything to do with the lease terminations, but we had a really good meeting with all of them, and I did want to express that.
I'd like to make a comment about the parking. The parking in the existing ordinance is 1 to 70. Staff agreed that that doesn't make sense for a museum. We looked at Charleston, Savannah, and Jacksonville. 1 in 400 square feet, 1 in 500 square feet, and 1 in 600 square feet. We used the most restrictive of those 3 as our basis to do 1 space for every 400 square feet. And that is a big component of the PD text, and it is different than the current zoning, but we believe that it's more appropriate based on those adjacent cities that actually have some museums and do make it work with those ratios.
Let me mention one other thing. Bill Edenfield is a master landscaper, and his mission was to make sure the landscaping in the village reflected what Sea Island could do, and he has done that, we think, on an exceptional basis, and believe that it's done as nicely as it could possibly be done. We went through several iterations of that, and are frankly quite proud of the way it's ended up.
Okay, thank you.
We don't have a form-based code, we have a use-based code. So to me, the only question is whether the use that's proposed is consistent with the current zoning or not. I believe it is, so I'm going to make a motion that we deny ZN 4299.
All right, any discussion? I'd like to say a couple of comments before we vote that I think what they've done on the PD text is fine. They're changing it for an art museum specifically, and if you know anything about the owner of this project, there's not going to be an economic hardship with that person. It could be for me or Patrick or Will or anybody else, but listen, I recall, and I don't know how many of you were here in 1999 when the kiosks were built in the village. You would have thought the world had come to an end. It was a outcry that I've never even heard. Well, probably the last time I heard anything close to that was the Dollar General project on Frederica Road. But it was all outhouses. What kiosk? It was outhouses, and that's how people referred to it, and nobody liked them. Well, that's 21 years ago. A lot of folks have come since then and saw them for the first time, and they're kind of eclectic, but there's really nothing in the village that matches anything, if you think about it. And, you know, I certainly don't want St. Simon's to become like a Helen, where every storefront is the same. I like the difference of what we have down there, and I think a Greek Revival facade would fit in very nicely. It would be different, and it would certainly, I think, improve the overall look of the village. On parking, if Strother's burned down today, which I hope they don't do that, they could not build back as restrictive parking requirements. There's no parking in the village, we know that. This project actually adds parking to the project than what's there now. It actually adds green space to that whole parcel. There's more green space with this project than there is with the kiosk, with Dutchman's and the house behind it. So, you know, there's a residential component in what it is now, and residential creates density. That's what creates traffic. So, George, I respect your motion, and we'll hear that in just a second if there's no, any other comments from any other commissioners, and then we'll take that vote on your motion.
Mr. Chairman, just let me reiterate what I said. I don't necessarily disagree with anything you said, but given the fact that what has been proposed can't be done with the current zoning, there isn't any need to rezone it.
I understand. Thank you. Any other comments? All right, all of those in favor of the motion, if you'll read that motion again.
The motion was to recommend denial of ZM 4299.
Okay, all in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. There's three. All opposed? All right, 3-3. Mr. Worley, would you explain what the process is with this 3-3 vote?
So, Commissioners, you need 4 affirmative votes to take any action. A 3-3 vote is no action. Under our ordinances, we have a time limit. The Planning Commission has 60 days from the date of application to act on a rezoning application. If they fail to do so within that 60-day period, it gets transferred to the Board of Commissioners, recommendation of approval. Now, we have some strange circumstances here. The date of the application for this is February, I think 24th, if I'm not mistaken. Last time I looked at that, I can't pull it up. I can't connect to the internet to look at it, but that's my recollection. So obviously it's been longer than 60 days since that time. Obviously we've had a pandemic get in between that application and the first time we can have an in-person meeting. Unfortunately, you know, at one point we had a local order in place that told these kinds of time limits, while the Board of Commissioners, you know, still had the authority to enter local orders, but the governor back in early April entered a statewide order which terminated and canceled all local orders, including our local order to toll that time limit. So right now, you're beyond your 60 days. And so if you cannot come up with a motion tonight that gets 4 votes, then it'll go to the Board of Commissioners as a recommendation of approval.
Okay. Does everybody understand that? So we don't know if it's within that 60 days?
Well, it's not within the 60 days. You know, we actually have, you know, obviously have some extenuating circumstances because of the inability to meet in person for so long. But like I said, unfortunately, we thought about that, staff thought about that when this first started, and included in those local orders sort of a pause button on that 60 days. But once the governor superseded our authority to act locally, that went away. So under our ordinances, you had 60 days to hear this application. If you don't take action tonight, then under those ordinances, it's considered recommended for approval.
Anybody have any comment? So this will go before the Board of Commissioners as it is.
That's correct, unless someone makes a motion that y'all can get 4 votes on tonight.
Well,
I have a question.
all right.
My question is, knowing that there were 60 days involved with a decision being made on this, and we've been meeting every month with the exception of the month of June, and I guess just finding out about this and this just being presented, you know, it seems as though there's something missing here, some unfairness, or somebody knowing something, whatever. It just, I guess I'm just trying to get some clarity, some understanding with the 60 days, and, you know, we're at the point now, you know, to do or else.
Yes, ma'am. So I guess you have a couple options. If the applicant will agree, if you all want to defer this to your next meeting and the applicant agrees to that, you can do that. Absent the agreement of the applicant, then that provision of our ordinance, the 60-day provision, stands. So there is an out there. If they agree to for y'all to hear it beyond that 60-day period, that can happen. You know, it's just our ordinances weren't written to contemplate something like COVID-19, and so what we have on the books is what we have on the books. We couldn't have public hearings when we couldn't meet in person. There was just no way legally that we could do that. So this is our first opportunity to hear it. Unfortunately, you know, our ordinance is what it is, and there were just, like I said, we had a local order in place until April when that was canceled by the governor. So at that point, we couldn't continue doing that stuff. So we're kind of just caught by an ordinance that didn't contemplate something like this.
Mr. Chairman, regarding the point of the agenda, we take no further action, so this application will go to the BOC. Will site plan public hearing? Will that go forward tonight?
So just to clarify, the site plan is part of the plan development text. So whatever action you take on the plan development text that's a rezone application, that is inclusive of the site plan. So the site plan, because the property is under 3 acres total, the site plan is included in the PD text. So by approving the PD text, you're approving the site plan that's been submitted, or recommending denial, and that's also denying the site plan. So the only separate application you have tonight, though, is the village preservation application. So that, I mean, I think, could that still be heard?
So I think, commissioners, on the village preservation application, if it stands, your action tonight stands at a 3-3 vote and you don't take any further action. You could defer to find out what the Board of Commissioners does with the application when it goes to them. You could move forward on it tonight, and you still have your options open as to whether to approve or deny that. If you do approve it, I actually think the staff recommendation includes that being contingent upon the rezoning being approved. So it's sort of what y'all want to do. You can do it either way. Maybe it's prudent to wait to see what the Board of Commissioners does with the rezoning application before you hear it, but that's up to you.
Mr. Bishop, would you like to come forward? I think we want to be fair and don't want you to get caught with this 60-day deadline, which may have already passed. The Board of Commissioners may not be able to hear it within that time frame. That's what I understand. We don't know if that's in effect or not.
Well, I'm not sure I understand it either, just listening to this tonight. And as I understand it, you said the way things currently are have been expressed and the vote taken tonight, this moves forward to the county commission with a recommendation of approval, right?
Correct.
That's where I want to be.
Well,
right.
Well, Mr. Worley, is that in fact correct in terms of this pandemic order that has kind of put things on hold and
Well, so, yeah.
prevented them from coming in April is when they really wanted to come?
So, yeah, no fault of ours. We've been prepared.
I understand. No fault of anybody.
Exactly.
So the ordinance says the IPC or either planning commission on a rezoning has 60 days to act. Otherwise, that application is automatically deemed approved and forwarded to the Board of Commissioners. Or if they don't take any action within 60 days. Again, you know, we had a provision in our local orders trying to deal with that, trying to address that because we knew that was going to be an issue. Once the governor stepped in and said we couldn't do our own local orders, it kind of, you know, it's honestly hard to say what the situation is right now, other than, you know, it is clear that it's been 60 days since that application. We have periods where the governor has put orders saying we couldn't have gatherings of more than a certain number of people. It's made it impossible for us to meet in person. We can't have public hearings without meeting in person. This is our first opportunity to do that. So, you know, my best answer that I could probably give you right now is that it has been 60 days since that application's been submitted. If you can possibly come up with a motion that can get 4 votes tonight, that's probably your best option. If you can't, then I think.
Well, let me ask you this. Is it possible to have a motion to defer based on this 60-day question? That if it's not, I mean, if the application is still in good order in terms of time frame, then the 3-3 vote would stand on deferral? That's the question, really. I don't think it's fair to the applicant to be kind of beholden as to what's going to happen from an order that may or may not be correct. I mean, you'd think under the circumstances that 60-day would move toward actually today. So we've really had an opportunity to first hear this application.
Mr. Chairman, I would obviously not wish to, for there to be a motion to defer. You know, we've waited and waited and waited. And listen, I respect the feelings of the planning committee and the service you render. But, you know, we think it's.
You want to go with what we've got?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's it.
Hold
Thank
on,
you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. So why not leave it in current zoning and ask for a variance? Can you explain to me why you wouldn't be willing to do that?
Again, I will tell you that we were, when we initially met with the members of the Planning Commission staff, they said, well, there's a possibility, there's a nuance with respect to whether it's a museum or a gallery, and we just thought that it would better suit our purposes to be more specific about it. And maybe y'all don't have an appreciation, somebody anyway, doesn't have an appreciation for the transparency issue of this, or the matter which I thought was very important. I wanted everybody to know exactly what was going on down there. Listen, this man has been generous to our community, and he wishes to be further generous. And we wanted to be, again, maybe I don't like this, somebody didn't like the term transparency, all right? But I thought it was essential that we do that, specifically follow the wishes of our client, and also, and we had wonderful meetings with the Planning Commission. Staff could not have been better. And the county engineer and the county building inspector and everybody to be totally sure that we were doing what we ought to be doing in order to make sure that we complied with all the requirements. I'm sorry, Joel, I've been preaching now.
The microphone's going off, so we've had the vote, so.
Wait, hold on, I have a comment on the transparency. I absolutely appreciate transparency. So I'm going to be real transparent with you, is that what we're going to have come before us now are more and more PD techs, which I'm not in favor of giving someone an open door to whatever they want to do in the village area. So, I mean, I do appreciate transparency. It is a private museum. I do know that there are major tax benefits for the applicant. So, I mean,
All right.
I'm being
good.
transparent with you.
We have completed this application, so thank you. We can move on. We can have comments afterward. We move on. We've got applicants waiting on this
Mr.
next.
Chairman, I object to moving on. I don't think any of us necessarily want this to be going forward on a default approval. I think we owe it to ourselves to try and work through this. And I made the motion to deny because I don't see any benefit to the community for approving the rezoning when the applicant can get the same thing that they're asking for without a rezoning. But if the issue on the table is absolutely we got to have a PD for some reason, I would make a motion to approve this, but limit the PD to only the art museum, so that the only use that they can have is the use that they're proposing. My objection to the PD approach is that they have left in there restaurants, hotels, and other things that could be done under that PD in the future.
All right, I'll ask the applicant to come back up to see if that's acceptable.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, excuse me, sir.
Well, we can have the motion. Make the motion, and we'll have the second, and then we can discuss it.
I'll move that we approve the request for rezoning to a PD, provided that the PD is limited to the only use being an art museum.
Is there a second? Commissioner Rooks. Okay, I want to ask, is that acceptable to you?
So, Ms. Leaf, please clarify, I understand that the site plan is connected to the zoning. So for this decision, it can only be an art museum. There is no other possible use other than the art museum that can be built because the site plan is part of the zoning. Do I understand that correctly?
So yeah, you are correct that the site plan is part of the zoning. That being said, though, the site plan is tied to the building and the footprint and what's there. So if down the road, if the building was built, say it's a museum for 10 years, and someone says, hey, the museum is no longer in operation, they want to transfer it to a restaurant or a hotel, I don't know if this really protects that.
Okay.
And I can defer to Will. So
Okay.
that would be my only concern, is that another use could possibly go in there if it fits in that footprint, there's no additions or anything.
County Attorney?
Yes, I agree with Stephanie. If the footprint of the building doesn't change, then I don't see why the use couldn't change. As long as they don't need an amendment to the site plan, then, any other use could go in that same building.
And our client is not here to be able to forfeit some of the uses that are in that PD text, so I don't believe that we are at liberty to make a concession one way or the other. And there has been a long waiting period outside of anyone in this room's control, and we do request an action tonight on both applications. And if there's a procedural issue that the county has to work out as a result of that, we understand, but we'd like action on both items. And we're not at liberty to make concessions on the uses.
Any other discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chair, we can vote on that motion regardless to the applicant's view of it. We can approve it. They may not appreciate it, but we can send them forward with an approval. I don't know if we need to withdraw the first motion.
No, it's been voted on, so there
Yeah.
will be another motion.
So it's a little bit confusing to me. We've approved it one way, and now we're trying to approve it an additional way. I mean, it defaults to approval.
But let me clarify that. If you take no action tonight, it defaults to approval.
Okay.
But if you make a motion in any other way, if you take an action tonight, then it doesn't default to approval.
So 3 is defaults to no action, but goes forward as an approval.
So the first motion failed for lack of the requisite number of votes. Now we have another motion on the table. If no motion gets a majority of the votes, then it will go forward to the Board of Commissioners' recommendation of approval as is.
All right, you ready to vote? All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. That's 4. Those opposed? 2. Okay, motion passes. So that will go to the Board of Commissioners as a recommendation.
Can you, just for the record, can you repeat the motion just so we're clear?
The motion was that the request for rezoning to PD be approved, but that the permitted uses be limited to only an art museum.
All right, thank you. We're not doing the village preservation, correct? We skipped Hamilton Road?
Well, at this point, since your recommendation was to approve with the limitation on the art museum,
So we'll go to village
we would do
preservation.
the village preservation
All
as
right.
well.
This is VP 4300, St. Simon's Art Museum Village Preservation. Consider design review approval of the demolition of existing buildings, kiosk, commercial building, a single-family dwelling unit, and construction of a new 20,000 square foot building at 5513 Beechroot Drive, 315 15th Street, 108, 118, 124, 130, and 140 Pier Village Market, 300, 308, and 310 Mallory Street, and 508 Oglethorpe Avenue. Parcel number 04-04653, 04-04652, 04-10230, 04-11659, 04-07017. The new buildings propose an art museum, including a lecture hall and meeting rooms. The property is currently zoned Village Mixed Use and Island Preservation Design Review District, and the applicant is proposing to rezone it to Planned Development District. Case number ZM 4299, an Island Preservation Design Review District. James A. Bishop, agent for Sandy Vacation, LLC owner. All right, Stephanie?
Thank you. This is VP 4300, St. Simon's Art Museum Village Preservation. So this really is kind of a two-part request. The commission is only looking at the design review of the building and also reviewing the demolition of the structures that are on there. So it's really two parts. So you are looking at design review for demolition of the Pier Village Market kiosks, the commercial building, and the single-family dwelling unit. And then the second part of it is looking at the design review and considering the design review to construct the new two-story 20,000 square foot museum building. So the first is the Pier Village Market kiosks. These units are approximately 20 years old. According to the applicant, they're not architecturally, historically significant. The plans for the new structure do not include incorporation of the kiosk, so that is the reason for their interest in demolishing the units. We did have our county building official review to determine whether these kiosks were officially considered buildings, subject to this section of the ordinance, and he did determine that they are. The second is the commercial building along Beachview Drive. It's approximately 30 years old. The applicant has stated that it is not architecturally, historically significant, and due to alternate plans as well as floodplain standards, it was going to be more difficult to reuse this building as part of their project, so they are opting to demolish this building. And then the single-family dwelling unit is approximately 95 years old. There were significant alterations 25 years ago, so based on those significant alterations, the applicant has stated that did alter the historic character significantly to the point that it is not really considered a historically significant building any longer. And also, the plans for this new building do not include incorporation of the house with the new development. And then, as we've discussed with the 20,000 square foot art museum, primarily Greek Revival style, they were influenced by the lighthouse and the keeper's cottage, Charles B. Kluski. Primary entrance for this building is off of Mallory Street. The length, the predominant length of the side elevation of the building is along Beachview and Oglethorpe, and then they have put some open space along 15th Street between Beachview and Oglethorpe. The materials for the building is including stucco siding in a yellow shade, a white shade for the front columns and trim, and then a hunter green color for the shutters. They are proposing a brick base, and then they are proposing the roof to either be standing seam metal or asphalt shingles. They are leaving that up to determine later on in the project, so they have proposed 2 options there. They've also proposed or included a tree plan, including tree removal and tree protection. And a large part of the village preservation too is protecting the trees that they are preserving during the demolition process to ensure that those root structures and those trees are not damaged during demolition. They also included the landscape plan. They would like to have right-of-way encroachments with landscaping in the future and do some streetscape improvements. All of that would be subject to a future approval by the Board of Commissioners. So they would have to apply for a right-of-way permit, and the Board of Commissioners would consider that in the future. That cannot be part of this process now. These are the same images that were shown in the last applications. This is the demolition plan, site plan, tree protection plan, landscape plan. And then this is the exterior elevations and the colors and materials, and the irrigation plan. These are your actions, and then your possible motions are to approve, defer, or deny the application. And I'm happy to answer questions as well as the applicant team. Thank you.
Any questions of staff? Mr. Bishop?
This is called a demolition plan. We don't plan on demolishing those things. Those are frankly going to become housing units, and we've been talking to a number of people about removing them very carefully, relocating them for housing purposes for those who need housing over in the mainland. So that's what we intend to do, at the appropriate time and place, and be very sensitive about all of that. I think it's a very good use of it.
Okay. This is a public hearing. Same rules as before. You have 5 minutes to speak in favor or opposed, so I'll invite those who are opposed to this application, if you'll come forward, state your name. It may be redundant, but if you want to come on. Those who are opposed.
Hi, my name is Melissa Mars. I've lived here my whole life. I was wondering if the applicant has provided a rendering that would show the size and scale of their building, like next to what, the other village? No, next to the other village buildings. Like compared to, like Simon's or
There's a side elevation.
Barbagene's or
The
like how tall versus the other?
Ms. Leaf, if you can give that information.
Yes, sir. So the very top left of the screen, it's kind of faded in the background, but they do have the, it's faint, but that does show how the massing compares.
Okay, thank you. Anybody?
Hi, my name is Roby Frachet. I was an art history major, and I am well aware of Mr. Anschutz. We lived in Denver for 40 years. He's quite a benefactor. I would love to have an art museum in this area, just not in the village. I feel like it would be a real flop because the people who come here on vacation are beach-oriented and not so art-oriented, and maybe that's just a shallow take on my part. I'd love to have the museum, just not there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Julian Smith again. I want to thank Mr. Willis for reminding us of the small kerfuffle at the time the little kiosks were first proposed. We've gotten used to them. They are attractive, they are quaint, they are funky, they fit in very nicely with what we have in that area. And I would hate to see them go. And given the amount of land in the county that would provide a better place for this art museum, it's a shame to see those little buildings taken down. And I remember 3 or 4 years back, maybe 5 years back, when the woman who owned who ran the small shop in one half of the building where Dutchman's is, was told she would have to give up her lease, she would have to vacate, because the owners of the building wanted to expand the amount of commercial space, so they would have one big space, which is what the Dutchman's place now occupies. So what we see here is this constant turnover and this revision and this lack of leaving things alone, letting businesses evolve. And by the way, I really miss the Bavarian bakery that used to be in that building. And I hate to see old residential houses being torn down for no particularly good reason. This museum will be beautiful. It's going to have beautiful landscaping if it gets built there. But this is, again, the wrong place. And please, don't put lipstick on our funky little village area. Thank you.
Thank you.
We are both
State
employees.
state your name, please.
Cindy Lanyon. And Autumn Tolbert. And we're employees at Dutchman's. And while we understand that the property has been purchased and something will happen there, we can tell you that not a one of our customers is happy about it.
No tourists, no local people, no one that has come in there is happy about
Speak in the microphone.
No tourists or local people are happy about this at all. We get a lot of tourists, but we also get just as many local people. And we haven't had anyone that has been in support of this at all.
Not at all. And like I said, while we understand the property has been purchased and we will have to find somewhere to go, we're willing to do that. But we would like to see what goes in its place, something that is in keeping with the village. So we recommend denial.
Thank you. I haven't seen you since the tree ordinance work.
And I'm not here to talk about trees
Good.
tonight, because Mr. Edenfield has done a wonderful job. I do appreciate the applicant's
and you are?
commitment.
You are?
I'm Miriam Lancaster.
All right, thank you.
I live on St. Simon's Island. We do appreciate this gift, and I think as somebody said, we'd hate to look a gift horse in the mouth. Let's understand that the Denver property that some folks have talked about was an historic 1880s structure that was in need of saving, and Mr. Anschutz saved it for that community. Now, in our community, we're talking about a different issue. We're talking about a new structure coming into a historic, use the term loosely, village that we all love. And the design review of the Village Preservation District was established in 2009 to protect the historical and architectural character of the village. And let me say in all seriousness, not to improve the character, but to protect the existing character. According to the ordinance, the proposed structure should be judged by its compatibility with the existing structures by looking at the bulk or size of the building, the articulation or pattern of the design facade, and the fenestration, which is in the ordinance, that word is, the arrangement and proportion of the windows and the doors. So look at this proposed design. It is basically a single large structure, generally in the shape of a big box, that upon completion will be the largest building in the village. It's only 2 stories, and I commend the applicant for that because it could have been taller. For comparison purposes, the footprint of Struthers is 7,500 square feet, and you only see the front facade. The footprint of this building will be 10,000 square feet on the corner of Beachview and Mallory. The elevation on Beachview Drive will be 130 feet of wall, and you can see it in the very top left corner of that slide, 130 feet of wall, 3 feet from the right-of-way, with no break except for 10 windows, 5 on the first floor, 5 on the second floor. That's like a third of a football field of wall on Beachview Drive. The facade is designed in the Greek Revival style, as we've talked about, with 4 2-story columns and a very formal, traditional entablature, there's a new word, the triangular design at the top above the columns. It is perfectly symmetrical, and it is a Greek Revival design not currently found in any structure in the village. I have great respect for the architects at Wiregrass, and this is a lovely interpretation of classical Greek Revival design, but it is not suited for the village. Greek Revival is a style that's most often associated with churches, like the First Baptist Church on Ocean Boulevard, courthouses, universities, and fictional Southern plantation homes. It simply doesn't fit with the casual, coastal, asymmetrical architecture of the village that grew organically over many generations from simple utilitarian structures such as Struthers, or remember when St. Simon's Drugs used to be in the village, Higdon's, the bait shop, and others. The applicant states that this design is a homage to the work of Charles Kluski, the architect who designed the lighthouse and the keeper's cottage, but it does not reflect in any way Kluski's work on the island. Kluski's Greek Revival designs consisted of government buildings such as the Millersville Governor's Mansion and large antebellum homes in Savannah and Augusta. His work on the island includes none of the Greek Revival elements that are on display in this design. The Jones Center is a perfect example of a design that would blend into the Village Preservation District. I don't want to complain, I want to offer an alternative, and takes design cues from Kluski's work that is here on the island. Rather than 2-story round Greek columns, the Jones Center has single-story square columns similar to the front porch of the keeper's cottage. Instead of a rigidly symmetrical facade, the second story of the Jones Center is set back from the porches on the first story, providing variations in the planes of the structure. As a result, the Jones Center complements and does not compete with its surroundings. That's the intent of the Island Preservation Ordinance, and that's what we need to see here. This may be the first review of new construction since the creation of the Island Preservation Ordinance in November 2009. This body has consistently required property owners seeking modifications to their buildings to comply with the ordinance, and the results have been very positive. Can you imagine if Struthers had said, we want to change our facade, we want to make it Greek Revival? Probably would not have passed. Now that you're tasked with reviewing new construction, it's important to mandate the same level of compliance as you have in the past. I ask that you consider these issues as you determine the suitability of this design for our community.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak opposed? All right. All those who'd like to speak in favor, like to come forward? All right. Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, one issue that I mentioned in my conference with the applicant and with Stephanie, you know, as far as blending in with Village Preservation District, You know as well as I do that we have sent numerous people back for the color of their awning because it didn't fit. So, you know, this is a big change.
I was thinking, Commissioner Kay had additional comment. It's a big change.
Fitting in with village preservation, the look of it. You know, yes.
I originally had some concerns about the Greek revival. I love Greek revival. Having grown up here in Georgia, those of us that have grown up here, we know what Greek revival is. It's not just fictional homes and Gone with the Wind, but yeah, it usually is reserved for institutional buildings relative to new construction. I've spent a lot of time on these drawings and reflected on that conversation and try to picture this building in the village, and I can understand people that have difficulty with it. But having looked back at the changes in the village for not just 20 years, 30 years, but 40 years, the village has really changed 2 or 3 times. So I'm not that uncomfortable with having an iconic design. But the color, I raise honeybees now. Honeybee yellow, I've not seen too many Greek revival buildings in yellow. So thank you. Let's see if this works. Maybe if we can get the architect to comment on the color selection, choice, or process, would appreciate that. Yeah.
The owner certainly has definite ideas about the look of this building, and part of our job is to try to make sure that we're meeting his requirements and also keeping the village in mind, which is, and I grew up around here, and I know, I'm very familiar with it. It is a yellow building on the most of the stucco, and the color was actually taken from numerous photos of other structures, similar structures, including 2 paintings that will be in the museum of a courthouse, of a specific courthouse that is similar in color to that. So that's where the color comes from. I think, of course, there's a lot of stucco on this building. There's also a lot of really thoughtful landscaping that I think is going to work to soften that quite a bit. So.
Okay. If I can just continue. Unless someone needs to jump in. Look, I have a lot of respect for the Sea Island Company, their history, and going back to the Jones family, and it's continued. The landscaping is top-notch, probably the best in this county. And I hope Mr. Edenfield gets well better, by the way. Please share our regards. I have no doubt that the landscape fabric wrap will be beautiful, and I'm thankful for that. I understand the concerns about the size of the building and probably the boldness of it, but I'm sure the landscaping will help soften that up. If there could be some consideration for the color, maybe something a little more palatable. I'm a little bit concerned about the bold color on that corner. There was a little bit of pushback when one of the village merchants started to paint their building kind of a purple color, and that was shocking. I don't put yellow and purple in the same family, but I think it could have a similar contrasting impact. And I don't know if that's something we want to address tonight as a commission, Mr. Chair. But I'm comfortable with the Greek revival now. And I was breaking up with the other microphone. I think sometimes a museum is meant to be iconic. That's part of the impact that the art community brings to society. The village is a sleepy place, has been, it's changing, and it always has changed. Those of you that were here in the 60s and 70s, you know what I'm talking about. And that horse left the barn decades ago. Thank you.
You know, I really regret that Bill Enfield is not here tonight, and it's no fault of his, obviously, that he's not, but I think he could address this. We have really spoken at length with him about the architectural design, the color, the shade, the landscaping component of this, and believe that that this community would be overwhelmingly pleased with what ultimately exists down there. Sea Island's not in the habit of presenting something that is not absolutely spectacular. You know, you can drive on to Sea Island and around the curve, and on the left there are enormous buildings, hotel buildings there. You don't even see them. You can't see them because of the architectural design, and also because of, most especially, the landscape design. And we know how sensitive, and we've told Bill how sensitive it is to make sure that we do that same sort of landscaping design and features and sensitivity down in the village, and he's assured us that he will. And so we feel okay about that.
Okay, commissioners. That was it.
I guess I agree with the comments made by Ms. Lancaster. When I look at the ordinance itself, one of the things, she quoted directly from the ordinance, and to me what's troublesome about this, I'm a fan of Greek Revival architecture too, just not in the village. It doesn't fit the bulk of this because it's a big square box. You know, if they need 20,000 square feet to house the collection they have, there are a lot of different ways to configure 20,000 square feet so it doesn't necessarily look like 20,000 square feet from the outside. You know, I have a house that from the street looks like it's about an 1,800 square foot house. It turns out it's 4,400 square feet because of the way it's laid out. I would like to see the design of this building done in a way that reduces the overall massing and bulk. If they need 20,000, that's fine, but Greek Revival architecture just doesn't fit. If they are absolutely lockstep in wanting to have that design, I agree with one of the comments that was made an hour and a half ago. It should be somewhere in Brunswick. It doesn't belong in the village. Color aside.
Any other comments? You know, one thing you could do on Beachview Drive is add more windows, but not have the window itself. You can, Mr. Brock, I'm sure you're familiar with, you think they look like windows, but they're really not. I know that the desire is to not have natural sunlight come into a museum because it could ruin the art. So I understand that part, but you can certainly break up that wall with more of that type of in the facility. Just a comment that I have. So, all right. Any other comment, commissioners? All right.
Let me remind let me remind my fellow commissioners that we turned down, I was recused, but the commission turned down a residential application about 2 months ago because it was too big for the neighborhood. It didn't fit. The bulk was too big. In that particular case, the applicant modified the design to try and make it more compatible with the surrounding area. That's all I'm asking here. I've been consistent in my comments since we first were asked to look at this back in March, and there hasn't been any change in the design of this building itself to try and respond to that.
So evidently, there's no one present who can make any decisions or comments in reference to a different design, or the color, or whatever.
Again, we've met exhaustively with respect to all of the county team members and talked about the design, the landscaping, the planning, and on and on and on. And it's we believe that we ended up with a product and a project that reflects the wishes of the owner, and also is consistent with what we believe to be good design, good landscaping, and an appropriate project for the village and our community. So we've been, I think, very responsive to that. And again, I'm sorry to Bill Edenfield in here tonight to explain more thoroughly what I cannot. I'm not a landscape architect. I'm not any kind of architect. So, but again, we've looked at it very thoroughly and exhaustively, and are frankly, pleased with the end result of the product that we have.
Mr. Bishop, let me ask you, would you be open for deferral on this site plan until you get these questions answered from the owner? I know he's the one that is paying for it and is very adamant probably about it, but could you wait on this part just to get some definition from him?
Wait for how long, Joel?
Well, we could put it to the next month, in August, with the next meeting, would be the earliest time we could hear it again. Would that be acceptable? I'm just throwing this out as an option.
I would prefer a deferral rather than a denial, if that's the answer, if that's the question you're asking.
Well, yeah, I understand that. I think.
I'm sorry?
I think I'm in order to make a motion to defer this. Let me get the right number. VP 4300. I make a motion to defer till, I'm not sure the date. August
18th, sir.
August 18th, 2020.
And let me ask the county attorney. Well, what does this do to us? Where are we?
So Commissioners, just so everyone's clear, this application is not subject to the 60-day requirement like the rezoning is. The ordinance does allow you to defer this once without the concurrence of the applicant to the next regular meeting. So that motion would be in order if you want to approve it. So it would go forward to the next regular meeting, August 18th, if this passes. I would suspect that the members would expect maybe some changes based on their comments at this meeting tonight.
Sure.
I just want to go on record as saying that there have been a lot of discussions about the massing and the disposition of the building on the site. And at the end of the analysis, we have a very large program requirement for the painting space within the building. It's similar to the one in Colorado in that it's the paintings are stacked on the wall thickly. We're having a hard time putting it all in there. The size of the building is essentially a rectangle with a small piece and a porch on the front. I understand that. It is set back from the road in order to provide green space and in fact sort of gathering space on the corner there. That was intentional. It was done that way to consolidate the green spaces around the museum, and I think it's successful in that respect, that where there were little scattered patches basically of straw, we've now created and massed those spaces together in ways that they're actually usable and attractive and maintainable that way. So one way to look at it is that arguably it's a very efficient use of space. As far as the massing, it's a tall building, but the cornice is low. I think the size is particularly driven by the program and the owner's intent to put in it. As far as the color, I do think we could go lighter.
Excuse me. Wait a minute, Patrick. I haven't gotten a second on my motion, so I'm going to withdraw my motion. I didn't recognize it. I'm sorry, but I withdraw that motion. I want to ask a question. If this site plan is denied, what does that mean?
Under the Village Preservation Ordinance, then another application cannot be considered for this property for 6 months.
Okay, that's what I thought. I wanted to make that clear. So I'll make the motion to defer this until August 18th, 2020. There's a second by Commissioner Ragsdale.
I would support that.
We have any discussion on the motion in the second? All right, all in favor, raise your hand. All right. All right, got more work to do.
Thank you, buddy.
All right. Yeah, it would be. This is a public hearing, zoning decision, ZM 4324, Hamilton Road Storage Rezone. Consider an amendment to the Island Medical Park Plan Development District, case number ZM 2263, to add rental storage facility as a permitted use in the list of allowed uses of a property located at 371 and 391 Hamilton Road, parcel number 0412017 and 0412018. The applicant proposes a new rental storage facility building. Jonathan Roberts, Civil Engineer and Agent for South Leeward Bluff LLC owner, Victory Storage Company applicant. Ms. Leaf.
Thank you. This is ZM 4324, Hamilton Road Storage Rezone. This is the property, it's not too far from this location we're at currently. This is at Hamilton Road and Wellness Way. The star on the screen is the property. Currently is 2 parcels. They would be combining the property prior to getting a building permit if this project is approved. So the zoning district is currently planned development. It was originally planned out as the Island Medical Park Plan Development. Basically, the variety of uses were medical office, government professional office oriented. They also allowed residential on the second floor of buildings, and then any other kind of ancillary uses that could serve that medical plaza. So what this application does is they do still keep it as planned development. However, they are looking to amend the planned development to allow a rental storage facility as an allowed use. So a couple changes since the initial application and when the original packet went out last week. So when the packet went out last week, the project, the PD text in there did include all the other uses that were originally allowed in the Island Medical Park PD, but just added a new use as the rental storage facility. Since the packet went out, the applicants have submitted a revision to that. The packet was revised online on Friday to indicate that the plan development text now adds rental storage facility as an allowed use, and then all other uses and accessory uses become special uses. So anything else that would ever happen on the site, if they decide not to do a rental storage facility, any other uses would have to come back to the county and get a special use permit to operate on the site. The building that they are proposing, that was also a change since the packet went out. When the packet went out, the site plan had indicated that the building was 24,465 square feet. That is actually just the footprint of the building. Because it is a multi-story building, that was only the footprint. The plans had not indicated that differential, so the plans were corrected by the applicant and resubmitted, and that was also corrected in the revised packet online and sent out to the commissioners. So the actual square footage of their proposed rental storage facility is 73,089 square feet. It is all interior storage. There are no exterior garage doors. There will not be anything stored on the property outdoors, so there wouldn't be any outdoor storage of vehicles or RVs or anything like that. This is the comprehensive plan map. It does show it as medium-density residential. So the existing plan development, is a commercial PD. So because they were adding an additional use, staff did not feel that it needed to actually be an amendment to the comprehensive plan to reflect that, because it is already zoned as commercial. But this is what the future land use map currently has for the property. So this is the proposed site plan. So there are access points off of Hamilton and Wellness Way. And just a zoomed in version of the site plan, so you can show it a little bit more. They also recently submitted a lighting plan. And this has been a new resubmittal since the packet did go out. These are the proposed elevations. As you can see, it's a multi-story building, but everything is internal access. And just other views of the exterior elevations. This is another new submittal by the applicant since the packets went out. There were a lot of questions about the aesthetics of the building, how it would look, so they did submit this color rendering to show what the building would look like with the buffers and the landscaping around the building. So these are your Planning Commission actions. And these are your possible motions to recommend approval, defer, or recommend denial. And I will note, because this property is under 3 acres as well, the site plan, which we do have on the agenda as a separate action, the site plan would be part of the PD as well. So anything that's under 3 acres per the PD section of the ordinance, it does require a site plan to be part of the PD, and that site plan is valid in perpetuity for anything under 3 acres. So I'd be happy to answer questions, and the applicant's team is here as well. Thank you.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for staff? This is a public hearing. Would the applicant please come up?
Hi, I'm Jim Watson, president of Victory Storage Company. We're the developers here, and we'd like to thank you all for being here. This meeting is not fun, I know. We've been here long enough, but I sure appreciate your helping to put it together. We've been here a long time. Jane and I have been here, and our family have been here for 45 years, and what came out initially was correct. We're not from here. We've been here a long time, though. We have another storage company, Frederica Storage, and this will be similar. Our traffic patterns are very low. I want to thank you people for coming, because you got a chance to get the correct information here as opposed to what's on the internet. It is a steel building, but you won't know it. It's a stucco building. We feel like we've subdued it enough, and we hope that y'all will see it that way. The most important thing we want to take away from the table tonight here, I want you all to take away, is that the traffic will be greatly reduced. We're talking 10, excuse me. I'm sorry, we're talking 10 to 15 visits a day average versus could be several hundred. Hope y'all will look into that, think about that when you think about what could be, what it's presently zoned for. We're asking to change it and take things off the table. that could allow several hundred cars a day on Hamilton. So anyway, I'm going to turn this over to Jonathan. He has the real particulars on it, but I'd like you all to know that we think St. Simons is this is better served for St. Simons than anything that can be put here under the present zoning, restaurants or whatever. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I'm Jonathan Roberts again, and like Mr. Watson said, the traffic is a big issue on Hamilton, and right now medical facilities would be allowed. We had a traffic engineer do a comprehensive study that was reviewed by the county engineer, and the figures were that the storage would be about 1/4 the traffic flow from a 12,000 square foot medical office building. So a 12,000 square foot medical office building would easily fit on that site. It's allowed by the current zoning, and that would be about 1/4 of the traffic from a storage facility compared to that. And that's based on the ITE manual, the book values. They find from their existing storage facilities that they even get less traffic than the typical manual suggests. That's a big component. And then any questions that you have, certainly be happy to answer as far as the site and the overall design.
Okay, any questions of the applicant?
I have one. I made a site visit there, and in looking at the property, there was a Sago there. Initially, we thought it was on the property of the company behind your potential storage. But then when I looked at the markings as to where the project, ends, the property ends there, it went behind the Sago plant that was there. So I guess my concern, which is it, or is it
So
on your
I'm not familiar with that
property or the
Sago.
other?
Maybe Kirk can speak to it.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Rooks, when we met that day, we marked out where the property line had been flagged, and it does look like the neighbor planted a sago palm across her property line. The site is already cleared, as you noticed, so that must have been done by them years ago when they built their building.
Okay, so you'll be talking to the neighbor in reference to that?
Well, it is located within the setback. There's a 20-foot setback, if you remember, but yeah, we can discuss that sago palm with her.
It'll stay. Sago palm will stay, won't it? Basically where it is?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. This is a public hearing, so any of those who are, would like to come forward and speak in opposition to this application, if you'll come forward. State your name.
Good evening. My name is Judy Jefferson, and I live here on the island in this neighborhood. I appreciate the work the Planning Commission staff has done with the information given to us prior to the meeting, and I certainly appreciate the updates tonight that we were not aware of. Given there is a rezoning request from the applicant, I still have several questions. A 7 parking space storage facility on 2.5 acres. My question is, what is your market? I have no idea what market you're focused on. My imagination is very good. And I think about the little marina down here that's county-owned. And hey, maybe hydraulic lifts and boats, I don't know. New folks coming to the island might want to store all their stuff in there, so we'll have Mayflower trucks. I don't know. Recreational vehicle storage was mentioned to me today by the men at the marina. They don't know. I'm very curious. While the applicant has done his homework, please keep this in mind. The parcel in question is adjacent to sensitive medical facilities, expensive houses with children, bikes, walkers, and dogs. I do that road every day with my own dog. I would ask you for a sidewalk, but I'm not here to do that. A school, not to mention a historic park. Nothing in the spoke around the proposed storage unit facility is anywhere near industrial in nature. Sorry. The precedent for storage, to my eye on the island, is in the industrial commercial area like Skyline Drive. It's central, and it is zoned for something like these gentlemen are proposing. Take the facility for storage to commercial industrial. Bring us medical services, which we need on the island where they belong. I recommend no zoning. Let's keep the island dream, and let's not become something we are not. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Planning Commission. My name is Mark Veeder. I live in Mariners Landing. Actually, I'm 301 Mariners Landing. My wife and I have lived there for the past about 2 years. I've lived over here about 30-some years. This is my final house, my only house, my permanent house. I moved from across the fire station on Demery Road. It was changed to Old Demery Road at one point. When I talked to the Planning Commission probably 7 years ago, could be longer than that, I was concerned about the building being built across the street, a block from my house then, and I was concerned about, how are they going to separate that facility of those businesses, and they said they'll have landscaping in, and it'll be, the builder said, and you won't see much, whatever. Well, I've lived there. It's about 3 feet high. You see all the buildings, traffic buildup. I'll make this short as possible to you. As for the traffic study, I read the traffic study, and I may be wrong, but it was about a 4% increase of traffic, and I don't want any more traffic. I live right on the corner there. I see traffic daily, and I just don't want any more traffic. As for the 2011, I may be wrong, Commissioners. I apologize if I do. About this amendment in 2011, it was just meant for medical facilities or other things. I wish you would keep that. If this storage center comes in, I want to keep the storage center out. I know they mentioned they could have restaurants and other things in. I feel as a person, I got to stand against this. If I keep putting up with stuff every day, I don't feel worth to myself, so I'm totally against this. I'm concerned about property value. This is a block from my house. I've been to that lot. I've looked at it. Yes, it's cleared out from years ago, whatever, but there is going to be traffic in and out of there constantly. I have no disrespect for any of the planners or anything here, though, but do you want to live right across from a storage center? I don't. One last note I have here. Again, I'm concerned about what's going to be put in. I've heard comments that it could take away my house value. It also says, if they put this in, what's going to be next? I want it stopped. I want my island. I want the woods. I want the trees. The lady that mentioned before, I still want to see people walking with their dogs, kids going down the street. I don't want the traffic. One final thing, it wasn't addressed, and I didn't hear it. I hope you probably will, and it may be in your report. And I'm sorry if I didn't see it. I'm curious about the hours of operation. Is it going to be only open for certain hours and closed? Because I know I had storage over at the center over by the airport, and that was 24 hours I could get it on there. I really appreciate that you vote against this and do not put the storage center across from where I live. Thank you, Commissioners.
Julian Smith again. Basically, what we have here is a desire to step outside the bounds of the original PD text, which was designed to encourage and to limit development there to medical uses or those associated with medical uses. For instance, a gift shop or a flower shop, or even a restaurant convenient to the healthcare facility that is there. And I don't want to scare anyone, but we don't know where we're going with this COVID-19 pandemic. We don't know how many people are going to have long-term medical problems growing out of this pandemic. And it could very well be that we're going to need more space near doctors' offices, et cetera, to deal with the problems that are coming before us. Is there really a demand, a need, a demonstrable need on St. Simon's for more storage? Now, I toured the model units, condos, across the road at Mariner's Landing. There is adequate storage in each of those buildings for small amounts of things. And I asked Jonathan Roberts before the start of the meeting, how many storage units, individual storage units, are proposed in this 3-story building? And if I heard him correctly, he said more than 400. Is that correct? More
Hey,
than
Mr.
400.
Smith, Mr. Smith, we'll have him a chance to answer any
And
questions.
he nods yes. Thank you. Well, I had sent you all an email asking you to ask that question, but I didn't hear the question being asked. So, I'm not sure there is such a need, and there may be a need for something else. I don't think that any traffic study can adequately predict what will happen if this becomes a storage unit convenient for people who don't want to have big storage units, some of which are going empty now, and want to have smaller storage units. I don't know what they're going to store there. I wish George Carlin was still with us. He had some beautiful rants and raves on how much stuff people have and why they have it and why they don't get rid of it rather than, in this case, store it. So I hope you will not recommend approval of this change. Let's save that land for something more significant and useful. And that would be consistent. A decision to recommend denial of this would be consistent with the first article of your zoning ordinance, the article that deals with such matters as premature development, public safety, et cetera, et cetera. So, thank you.
Good evening. Good evening, Commissioners. Can you hear me? My question
Your
tonight-
name, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jane Fraser, and I live on Sea Island. I met with the applicant, and he answered almost all my questions. I actually have a question for staff and for you commissioners. I see that the drainage is marked as compliant, but nowhere in your package do you have any information on the drainage. I worry about the storm drainage off of here. Now, I've learned from Mr. Watson that there will be a retention basin, is that correct? But it's not drawn. You don't know how big it is. You don't know if it'll do the job. I would suggest deferring this until you know more about why this was marked compliant, and I would urge staff to maybe perhaps Stephanie, why it is marked compliant, because there's nothing to indicate that. Other than that, I think from a traffic standpoint, that this project is actually, could be very helpful in reducing traffic. It's certainly better than putting 25 homes in there. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, that was yay or nay?
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Janine Brooks, and I'm a resident of St. Simons. I'm seeing a pattern here that does concern me. I'll go back as far as the tree ordinance, but when we talk about changing or amending our ordinances, as you can see the length of things tonight, you go to great pains to really consider those changes. And that's one of my main things here with this as far as changing this plan development. There was a reason that it was zoned that way in 2011, and the folks who put that in place went to great extents to do that. I'll have to side with Mr. Smith over here about, we don't know what the future holds for what we may need here in a community for medical. So, I would really ask that you really think hard about changing these things up. As far as a storage unit and traffic, again, the question begs, what size vehicles are you talking about coming in there? How often are they coming in there? Are they going to be competing with trucks and boats and trailers and all of those kind of things on the weekends and at different hours of the day and night? Right now, you don't have the traffic. Could you have the traffic continue? Sure, if somebody decides to go in there and put a 12,000-foot facility. But I would just ask that you consider about, really think hard when it comes to changing them and adding to your things that you already have in place.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Debbie Yancey, and I'm a resident at the Villas of Gascoigne. I'm really here for information. I'm not very literate at reading blueprints and drawings and maps. But my question is, and I don't know if you can answer it for me right now, but there is a buffer of trees that is along Hamilton Road right now, so that you don't see the empty space behind it that's been cleared. I want to know, is the buffer of trees going to stay there?
All right.
It will. And so will you be turning into the space off of Hamilton Road or off of Wellness Way on Hamilton?
We can answer those questions.
Okay.
We'll have the applicant come up and address these questions that have been asked.
Okay.
All right.
But the residents that are in my building, most of them are away right now because they go up north for the winter. I'm a full-time resident. I would much rather not see storage buildings there. I would actually prefer a restaurant or a medical building, but just wanted to make my voice known. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Excuse me, I'm Gerald Edwards, and I was born and raised on Hamilton Plantation. So I've spent all my life here on this location and this wonderful island. But I'm not so much speaking in opposition to a storage unit as I am speaking in favor of the proposed expansion and future of the Georgia medical facilities that we have in Brunswick that we're going to need on this island as the island develops. And this space was set aside for that. And it should stay that. I mean, that was a reason for it, and it was a good reason for it, and it was planned well in advance. And I see no reason to avoid that, and there are other locations that storage units can be built. of that capacity. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Edwards is correct. His father was a caretaker for this property when the Eugene Lewis owned it prior to the Methodist Church buying it in 1949. And the house that Jerry grew up in is still here on our grounds. So Jerry, it's good to see you.
Likewise, the house I was born in is still here.
Yeah. We're preserving it just for you.
And it's only about 200 years old. I'm not going to make it, though.
Anybody else? All right, well, come on. There you go. Yeah, come on.
My name is William Studdard. I really didn't plan to speak tonight, but I will briefly. My name is William Studdard, and I am Judy's neighbor across the road at Mariner's Landing. And I'm a retired accountant. I'm not an engineer, so I can't speak to traffic and all these other issues you've got up here. But common sense tells me that a storage facility just don't fit. It doesn't fit the area. It doesn't fit the other things. It just doesn't fit. The other thing is that when people spend their money and acquire residential property, they look around and say, well, what's around here? Well, it's zoned for this, it's zoned for that. Well, zoning is a promise. People made a promise to you that this is the plan. This is what we're going to do. We're going to follow this plan. And we're not going to change it just because it's convenient for somebody or somebody would like something different. But we just change it because we want to. Okay? It's kind of a promise. So you look at this and you say, well, it's going to be medical offices. So I see the medical offices are already there. Well, they're nice. They got green space around them. They fit. They're low rise. They fit. Okay? This just doesn't fit. And that's all I can say. I'm not a technical expert. I can't talk to this, that, and the other. But I relied on the county's promise that this is the plan for this property when I came here. And let's don't change the rules on people. Thank you.
All right, does anybody else speak in opposition? All right, those who'd like to speak in favor?
My name is J.J. Lee from here, St. Simon's. I'll make this quick in the interest of time.
You can move your mask so we can understand you.
All right. Again, my name is J.J. Lee from here on St. Simon's, and I'll make this quick in the interest of time. I'm in favor, and I support the storage because I do see it having a need here, living and having relocated recently from the Mid-Island to the South Island, and having acquired too much stuff, even going into bigger houses. We need storage, and my family and I have had to go off island due to unit availability and size availability for our needs for storage units. From what I've seen, the renderings, the building looks like it's going to blend in, and from what of it will be seen from behind the trees resembles the medical building that's sitting on the similar property. Fewer people. Not a 20 unit or a 20 home development. It's a storage unit. It'll reduce the traffic in and out of this road in this community. And I fully support and see the need. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in favor of this application? All right, public hearing is closed. The applicant would come up. There's some questions I think were mentioned during that public hearing. I think one was, what could be stored in those units? I think there's a concern about that.
Sure. Yeah, Joel, Mr. Chairman, just to clarify, we would not allow RV or boat storage on this property. Nothing exterior will be stored on this property. No storage units will be visible or accessible from the exterior. You'll only see storage units once you enter into the building. Things that could be stored in a typical drive-up mini storage like landscaping equipment, things like that, you won't have that here. We don't allow that in climate-controlled buildings for a number of different reasons. We've met with several of the HOAs over there and a lot of the residents, And I think once they realize that this is not a typical drive-up mini storage with exposed doors, sheet metal siding, it really is designed to blend in better and to fit a need. So to answer your question on what could be stored there.
All right, hours of operation?
Yes, sir. Hours of operation, we're not in favor of a 24-hour storage facility for a number of different reasons. Our existing hours of operation on our other location on St. Simons is 7 to 8, and we would want to mirror that as well. The building can only be entered and exited through certain doors with keypad-controlled access, and there are cameras all over the place, so we can watch the building, keep it secure, and make sure there's nothing bad happening around it.
How many storage units? I know that's up for discussion.
Yes, sir. So the traffic study that we did and our projections right now are based on a number of about 450. And the exact number is probably going to vary up or down 3 to 5% there. And really that's just a function of the fact that we haven't gotten to the construction drawing process yet. There will be a final unit mix determined once we have elevator locations and so forth to kind of drive that.
Let's see. Buffer of trees on Hamilton Road.
May I add on the number of units?
Come up, speak. What?
May I add on the number of units? That sounds like a lot, and it is a lot. Having said that, the facility across the street from Sherwin-Williams Company, you have no idea how many is in there. I had to stop and think. 3, pardon?
Speaking of...
I'm sorry, I'm not close enough. The facility across the street from Sherwin-Williams Company, I'm talking about the number of units. 450 sounds like a lot. This building will be about 20% larger than that facility. That facility has 350-something units. You would never dream that, but that's a lot of units, but that's how many are in a building like that. So point being, when you get to the next step about traffic is we have less than 10 visits per day. That's 10. Keypad, we've got control. We know who comes in. So anyway.
All right, buffer, talk about the buffer.
Yes, sir. Buffer kind of ties in with another part of this. Somebody mentioned the idea of a sidewalk. They said they didn't ask for a sidewalk. We already committed to do a sidewalk. It's a part of our plan. We did that to try to alleviate, issues with folks walking up and down the road. But we proposed to put a sidewalk in on our property. Aside from that sidewalk, the plan is to leave the buffer intact. We like the buffer, and our industry people don't need to see us from the street. They will find us.
All right, where is the entrance? Somebody asked the entrance. There's one entrance into this facility, right?
Yeah, the entrance is off of Hamilton.
Yeah. Okay. And I don't think if there's a need for more storage, who knows? I mean, most people need storage, so. Drainage information?
Yeah, at this stage, the drainage requirement per section 619 is conceptual, but we have taken it multiple steps beyond that because drainage on this site was a key constraint. So we've done an analysis, and on the site plan, it refers to the specification for the underground detention system, and it does show a faint outline of the perimeter of that system. So we have gone much further than just a concept on this plan.
Right. And then, I just said in the question, but I think the hospital used to own this property, and they sold it. So obviously, they didn't think they needed it.
Yes, sir. We have approached the hospital, and they are in support of this project as long as we build what we have committed to build to them. And Larry Bryson, our architect, has brought some samples and can kind of get into exact materials and finishes. I know some of you guys wanted to be sure that the shingles were a certain quality and the lighting was a certain way. And as long as we have committed to build that, and we stick to that, the hospital's indicated they'll support it. The property was on the market for years. It's my understanding there are some federal funding issues with medical facilities and hospitals and floodplains, but I am not an expert on that. I just know they did not buy it. There are other folks interested in the property who would develop it differently.
All right, any questions from the commissioners to the applicant?
Understanding, I know you said the entrance will be from Hamilton, but you will also be able to use an exit going out Wellness Way. Is that still?
That's the plan, and that helps preserve as many trees as possible. If that exit was not available on Wellness Way, we'd have to have a bigger parking area or a bigger asphalt area for turning movements for vehicles, so that exit onto Wellness Way does limit the amount of asphalt we have to put in the site, and therefore we have a few more trees and green space.
Okay. Will your units be of various sizes or all the same?
Yes, ma'am. The sizes will vary anywhere between a 25 to 50 square foot unit up to a 250 square foot unit. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm trying to visualize. I know you have an elevator going up. So when they get up, I guess they have to have, a dolly to get to their various units, depending on what they're storing?
Yes, ma'am. We provide facility-provided moving. They're called platform trucks, and they help folks to get things up and down the hallways more conveniently.
All right, any other questions? Mr. Ragsdale?
An earlier, one of your drawings indicated a dumpster that I think you had said is not in the plan right now. But I would like to make sure that there's a condition, if this is approved, that dumpster be in the rear of the building, not where it was indicated on the drawing.
Yes, sir, and we actually have an alternate version on a thumb drive we'd be happy to share that shows it on the east side of the building, away from Hamilton, and that would be fine. And the owners are prepared to not have a dumpster at all. They say it's better not to have a dumpster. That is a requirement of Section 619, so we provided for it, but certainly if you want to put a condition for no dumpster, they'd be very agreeable to that, or on the other side of the building.
Okay. Other comments, questions?
And Mr. Chairman, I'll just state, we did receive a number of written public comments in support and opposed to this project, so I do have a hard copy of those if you want to.
Thank you.
Just have them on record. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioners? It's time to entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a couple comments, if I may.
Can't hear you.
I'd like to make a couple comments, if I may. We've got the marina storage facility just 451 feet away. And this is industrial looking as you can get, and they store boats down there. And I think this will be considerably more attractive than what's there currently. I know there was some concern from the Mariners Landing resident as well as the villas at Gascoigne, and those are both very new developments. There were a lot of trees there before those were built, and if those trees weren't removed, they wouldn't be living there. I think these people are trying to do the same thing that provide housing. Let's see. I think Epworth already brings in quite a large amount of buses and traffic through here, and I can imagine it's going to increase the traffic much at all compared to what Epworth is already doing. Like was said earlier, if the hospital needed the space, they probably would have sold it. I think them selling it kind of gave it permission to do what they wanted to with it.
Okay. In terms of traffic, we've had less traffic since March. You can imagine. No buses.
No,
All right.
according to the drawing here, the facility looks nice. It doesn't look like a storage unit per se. And because of traffic, that was a concern of mine. I see less traffic with a storage unit being there. And I really prefer, I guess I'm talking to you guys now.
Fine.
I really prefer seeing a storage unit there than seeing numerous of houses being there, because if you look at 25, 30, or 40 houses going there, you're looking at about, if 40, you're looking at 80, at least 80 cars, which will increase the traffic going there. And they were talking about the safety of children, you know, and pets and all. I think this would be better to me than having housing units there. So, but I like the drawing and everything. It looks nice, provided you do and keep it as they say they will. So.
To kind of comment on Ms. Brooks's thing, this might be the first commission meeting I've been to where people suggested someone. They're usually very opposed to restaurants and the noise and the smell and the traffic, and I'm just very surprised that people would prefer a restaurant here rather than a storage unit.
May I speak to this drawing that you referred to? This drawing, the trees are based on an actual tree survey. These aren't just some pretty trees that we drew in and thought that's what it would look like. Sure, they're green right now. They may not be green in the in the wintertime, of course, but these trees have been plotted on our drawings, so we know they were there. They are there. So it's not as though we're going to come in and plant a bunch of trees. We may plant trees, but we're starting with a good buffer to begin with. So I want y'all to realize that.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve, or recommend approval of ZM 4324 as presented.
The motion, and Commissioner Torres seconded it. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have a comment?
Can you restate the motion, please? Oh, okay, so we're going to have a site plan approval. I mean, there was discussion about, okay,
Yeah,
so
we'll
there
do
was
that.
discussion about the dumpster pad, and I thought that that would be part of the approval.
Let me ask, didn't, Mr. Watson, you say that the only use would be for this would be indoor storage?
Yes, sir.
And it's-
The PD text allowed a number of other uses.
Other uses, but it would be just for indoor storage only?
Yes, sir. The way they,
They have to, any change would have to come back, correct?
yes.
Okay.
Okay, so
All right. Everybody satisfied? Ready to vote?
well, it's on the agenda. Yeah.
All right. All in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand. That's unanimous. All right. So, site plan approval, SP 4323 Hamilton Road Storage Site Plan Approval. Consider site plan approval for a new 24,465 square foot rental storage facility at 371 and 391 Hamilton Road, parcel number 04-12017, 04-12018. Property zone plan development district, Island Medical Park Plan Development PD District, case number ZM2263. And the applicant is proposing to amend the PD to allow rental storage sales of permitted use on the subject property. Case number ZM4324. Jonathan Roberts, Roberts Civil Engineer and Agent for South Leeward Bluff, LLC owner, Victory Storage Company applicant. Ms. Leaf?
Thank you. This is a site plan 4323 for Hamilton Road Storage. And I won't go into a lot of detail since I did that in the last presentation, but this is for the site plan of the actual building, 73,089 square foot rental storage facility. Here is the site plan, just zoomed in version of the site plan. This is their tree plan, lighting plan, and then these are the proposed elevations and the conceptual drawing. I'm sorry, the color rendering. The motions would be to approve the site plan as presented, approve with conditions, or deny or defer to another meeting. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, and of course, the applicant team is here as well.
Any questions of staff?
Can you give them a variance for not requiring a dumpster?
Yeah. Yeah, a dumpster is not specifically required. If you do have a dumpster, you are required to have a buffer around it. So that is our only requirement. So I would say I would leave it up to, the determination, as long as, we're sure that they're handling their trash and recycling on site.
Okay. I think Mr. Roberts was under the impression that it was required per.
Yeah, a dumpster buffer definitely required. So.
Got it.
If they wanted to have roll carts and the roll carts satisfied their needs, then that would be fine.
All right, this is a public hearing, so anybody opposed to this application would like to come forward? All right, and seeing none, anybody in favor of this application, if you'd like to come forward? All right, public hearing's closed. So, commissioners, any questions of staff or applicant? Somebody like to entertain a motion?
I move that we approve SB 4323, Anderson Road Storage Site.
There's a motion and a second by Commissioner Torres. Any discussion?
And Mr. Chairman, if the dumpster, if you are okay not having the dumpster, because that is shown on the site plan, I would include that in your motion, that there's an option to remove that, just so that's not required.
Do you want to add that to your motion? No requirement on a dumpster?
If it's not required, they don't have to go then, right?
Yeah, the only thing is it is shown on the site plan, so if you're, proving it as presented, I mean, that is the site plan that we're going to look at when we do the inspection. So just to be clear, it'd be good to include that in your motion, that maybe leaving the dumpster optional for the applicant.
And so, I'm sorry, we have a motion and a second on the floor. I know it's late, but we need a motion to amend that motion.
A motion to amend the motion.
I'm not sure what
Well, no, it's not required, but it's on the site plan to remove it.
I'd like to amend the motion to not require a dumpster and to require that the buffer be maintained.
Okay. There's a second to that? Commissioner Tucson? All right. Now we'll vote on that motion. All in favor of that motion, please raise your hand. Yeah, the amendment to the motion. Now we need to vote on the motion, correct? All in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand. So done. Congratulations. Thank you. All right. One more item. Conditional use permit, 4381 106 East 18th Street, conditional use permit. Consider a conditional use permit for the installation of underground stormwater storage system, landscaping, retaining walls, and steps seaward of the development setback line established by the Board of Commissioners pursuant to zoning ordinance section 727, Beach and Dune Protection District. Property is located at 106 East 18th Street, Sea Island, parcel number 05-00792 in zone R12, R9, and Beach Dune Protection District. Daniel H. Busey, for Kenneth W. Lowe of the Kenneth W. Lowe Revocable Trust, owner and applicant. Ms. Leaf.
Okay, this is CUP 4381. This is the property on Sea Island where the Star is located. So the applicant is requesting a conditional use permit to install an underground stormwater storage system, landscaping, retaining walls, and steps seaward of the development setback line established by the Board of Commissioners pursuant to zoning ordinance 727, which is the Beach and Dune Protection District. So on June 4th, 2020, the Board of Commissioners did establish at that meeting the development setback, which is 40 feet landward of the toe of the most landward stable dune. So because of this determination, any work, or any improvements that they want to do within that 40-foot setback does require a conditional use permit, and it is very limited to what can be done in that 40-foot setback. So based on what they are looking to do, staff determined that the proposed work falls under what's listed as boardwalks, fences, storm drain systems, and native landscaping. So they are stating that the lawn and plants that are shown seaward of the county setback line will be native species. The code does not allow any kind of non-native landscaping, so it does have to be native landscaping. The landscape architect for the owner has stated that the grass will be seashore paspalum and the plants will be spartina. This is the survey of the property. One point to note where it does show the rock revetment on the ocean front side of the property, because of this past year, Sea Island did do a large beach renourishment program, and so where the rock revetment is along this portion of Sea Island, it is covered in sand now, so they did basically create a dune over what's rock. So where you see the rock is actually a sand dune over that now. This is the applicant's proposed project. So there is an existing house on the property that is undergoing a remodel at this point in time. They are proposing a pool and spa, which is all landward of the setback line, so none of the pool and spa is before you. So basically the project that they are looking at is basically lawn, the retaining wall, and then there's some steps and landscaping. So this image I did just highlight because there are a lot of lines and images on this plan. So I did highlight where the different setback lines are. So in blue is the Georgia Department of Natural Resources Shoreline Protection Act boundary. So the line that you see on the screen is their line, which is actually 25 feet landward of the toe of the dune.
Your microphone went off. Can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now? Okay. So the blue line is the DNR SBA line. The darker green line is the Glynn County 40-foot setback. So based on that, you can see from the green line going seaward, those are the improvements that are within that 40-foot setback that are subject to your review. This is a little bit more detailed plan that the applicant did just submit today based on some questions that were posed at some site visits yesterday with the IPC or different IPC members. There were some notations on the plan that just gave a little more detail. There's some herb garden that's shown on part of the plan, just specifying some of the lines that were unclear what they were. Those are actually hedges. And then on the bottom, there is a bocce ball court that does have a cobblestone border around that. But the bocce ball court is actually landward of the setback line, so that is not within your review. So here are some photos of the site. So this is basically standing on 18th Street, looking towards the property. The top left, the bottom, you're basically standing on the beach crossover, looking back towards the property. So here you are standing looking north on the property. So this is the dune area. So just for a reference, for those of you who haven't been out on the site, basically from the fence line, landward towards the house where a lot of the building materials are currently stacked, there's a portion of that is in the 40 feet, and then of course everything that's seaward of where the fence line is. Before you get to the dune, part of that is where they are going to be doing the additional landscaping. And then the photo on the right is just standing on the crossover looking south from the property. Today the applicant did provide some aerials just showing how the property has changed over the years. And what he has stated is that what they are proposing to do now is very close in line with how the property has looked over the years. So really going back to the early 2000s, it's been very similar, if not actually less native. So there has been lawn and landscaping that has not been as native or as So basically, what they're stating is what they're doing now is really an improvement over what has been there. So just starting in 2018 and looking kind of back towards time, so this is 2016 and then 2014. As you can see in those pictures, there is some lawn and landscaping. 2013, and then the 2010 is a little faded, but you can still tell there's some landscaping and lawn there. And then 2004, 2003 was prior to when this house was built. So these are your recommended, or your actions. This is a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. And I'm happy to answer any questions, and the applicant's agent, Mr. Busey, is here tonight as well.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Ragsdale.
I'd like to move that we defer this matter to our next meeting. A lot of information that you just presented, Stephanie, those drawings, as well as the additional information that came from the applicant. I don't know about others. I got them at 4:30 this afternoon and I haven't had a chance to look at them. So I move that we defer this to the next meeting in August.
Okay, there's a motion to defer. Is there a second? Ms. Kate seconded. Any discussion?
I would like for something to be considered. I don't know.
All right. Turn.
I don't know whether to do it now or wait later, because the amount of land that they want, my understanding, when I look at the side, look at the pool, where it is, and then one of the drawings up there, the one that says looking north of the property, there is a fence. There's a fence there. Okay, there's a fence there. And I did ask, what would they do with the additional property? And they said for landscaping. Well, if that's the case, why couldn't they put the pool closer to the house, do the landscaping there, and then the other property stay as is, because that's, my understanding, that's public property. Am I correct? It's not?
It's private setback.
It is private property? Well, whose property is it?
Homeowner.
Well, why would they need the additional?
The 40-foot setback from the dune.
It's jurisdictional line from the county and the DNR lines. That's what it is. Are you Mr. Busey?
Yes.
Would you like to just explain that to Ms. Rooks?
Please
I
do.
couldn't really hear exactly what you were asking from over there. So if you could, the question is again?
Okay, my understanding initially, that where the fence is, coming up to the dune, between the fence and coming up to the dune, that was not private property. I thought that was state property.
No, ma'am, that is Mr. Lowe's property. It goes all the way to the revetment. That was, he purchased that additional property shown on the plat from the Sea Island Company. That is private property. Yeah, what we're asking for is a conditional use permit to conduct landscaping to restore the area and actually put more native landscaping than what was there previously, and to install an underground stormwater system to help alleviate flooding of the ends of 18th Street, which are both allowable, meet the requirements. We've completed a complete application. As I stated, there's actually more native landscaping than been there previously. The conditional use is subject to what we're proposing not affecting the dune system, creating additional hazards for storm thing. Nothing we're doing is doing that. It meets that part of the requirement. It will not cause significant adverse effects, such as increasing potential for beach erosion. It's located behind a rock revetment, which was covered with sand during the latest nourishment project by Sea Island. As I explained to you on site, that it's going to be underground, the stormwater system. Nobody's going to see it. It works good. Mr. Roberts has designed other ones on the island for other residents. It's a a good system for the neighbors, it's a good system for Mr. Lowe. It's a great expense for him, but he's going to do it. And then as far as the landscaping goes, again, more native material than was there previously.
All right, thank you. Did he answer your question?
Okay.
All right, there's a motion. Any other discussion from the commissioners on the motion?
Is there something, I hate to interrupt, but is there something that Mr. Ragdale wants me to explain to him before we push this down the road?
I had information at 4:30. I have not seen that until now, so.
Okay, well, the only thing that's different on that now than what was submitted in your package is explaining what the line was, which you had interpreted as a retaining wall, is actually a hedge. If I had a pointer, I could clearly point it out to you. The only retaining walls are on the side yards that are depicted on the plan with measurements. Everything else you see in your development setback line outside of those stepping stones is native landscaping.
All right, let me ask a question first before you continue. Will, just to make certain that the motion is a legal motion prior to this public hearing. We hadn't even started the public hearing, but I want to make certain that the motion that Mr. Ragsdale made is a legal motion.
Yes, sir. You can make a motion to defer without holding a public hearing.
Okay, all right, thank you. So,
I would
do you have any comments?
respectfully request you to amend your motion if you have, because I could, I think, easily answer any of your questions, which were just posed to me 24 hours ago.
There's nothing to amend in my motion. I don't know what the questions are because I haven't had a chance to look at the information that you sent.
Well, subject to your purview of what we're asking for is landscaping and a stormwater detention system, which is all that we're proposing.
I appreciate what you're saying. I haven't looked at the drawing to be able to convince myself that it answers the questions that I raised when we met
That's
Monday.
the same drawing that's been in your package, sir.
Sorry?
That's the same drawing that's been in your package.
Well,
with
one
a
of the
couple
questions I asked was how high the retaining wall is. I don't see that on there. Now, maybe it's there.
It is, it's on there. 9.25 feet. It's at grade.
And that's on the sides as well?
That's the only retaining walls around the side yards.
Well, there's a retaining wall at the end of the pool, too.
There? That is a hedge, sir.
No, what, at the end of the, isn't that a retaining wall?
That's landward of the line, sir. The red line,
Is it a retaining?
that's hedges, sir. That's also landscaping, that's hedges, that's boxwood, but that's landward of your
Okay, it was
development.
identified on the prior drawing as a retaining wall.
The retaining walls are here, sir.
The retaining wall's on the side of the
But
yard.
anything over here, the round-shaped designations are hedge. Again, it's landward of the 40-foot setback.
There's a motion to defer in a second. Mhm. I think we can vote on that motion and see where we go. All in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand. All opposed? Motion fails 4-3. All right, now we can get into public hearing. Anybody here who would like to speak in opposition to this application, please come forward.
Before us, Jane Fraser, and I live 2 blocks from where this proposed building's going to take place. I have not received the latest packet. Has everyone received the latest?
The planning commissioners were sent it this afternoon.
So you all have your new information? Okay. I believe the application does not provide details of the plan to install an underground stormwater structure and replace existing vegetation with lawn and native vegetation seaward of the development's setback line. The county comments that the improvement, quotes, improvement on adjacent properties are set back further than the proposed project. The proposed project improvements encroach approximately 30 feet further seaward. Okay, to see that's further seaward than the improvements on the other properties in the immediate vicinity. 30 feet is a lot. The commission should deny conditional use. I do not find in the application a demonstration that the proposed use will have no significant adverse environmental effects. If you'll hang on just a sec. The plan is to fill, grade, or otherwise alter the land seaward of the development setback line, since their intention is to install an underground storage tank of 375 square feet and 880 square feet of lawn. The tank may be thought of as an underground swimming pool installed within the development setback. At 4 feet depth, this is roughly an 11,000-gallon pool. Its construction should be rejected since there is no demonstration of mitigation of environmental effects in the long term. With no details on how stormwater is collected and released, how the tank is constructed, and how it will be maintained, the commission will be approving an encroachment that the zoning codes are intended to prevent. I hope this gives sufficient rationale to challenge you to do the job that you are in place to do. It's amazing that the county drainage review had the results of compliant, since there are no details provided that would demonstrate compliance. It seems that they should have entered non-compliant until they were provided details that demonstrated or at least entered does not apply. Thank you very much for your careful attention to this application. I also would like to say that I think it puts those of us inland of this project in danger in times of hurricane to have encroachments into the beach area.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Don't see anybody else. Anybody like to come and speak in favor? Mr. Busey, Mr. Roberts, y'all welcome to come.
I think Jonathan can speak to the stormwater system, please.
There's a comprehensive plan for the stormwater. Again, I'm Jonathan Roberts. Comprehensive plan that has details that a full design has been completed. The county doesn't typically review detailed stormwater drainage for individual house permits, and they haven't required it on this particular encroachment. However, we could provide that, and it's complete, it's done, it's worked out, and certainly it's available. The 40 feet, as you guys know, is a relatively, it's a old rule with a new benchmark of which to measure it from. So these type of applications, in my understanding, have not been presented to you before because that 40 feet was often on the beach side of the DNR line. And so the DNR line was the more restrictive. Now, with the renourishment that Sea Island has done, the county 40 feet has become more restrictive than the DNR line. And so this is really what we're petitioning for today, is your blessing for us to go through with work that is allowed within the confines of the DNR rules.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So explain to me why the system could not go on behind the house, somewhere else on the property.
It could, and these type of systems are largely dictated based on the architectural design and what the homeowner wants to do. And they could also be above ground systems where it's just a holding area, but it's largely an aesthetic constraint by the homeowner or based on what plan they're moving forward with. And generally, the percolation rate's a little bit better closer to the beach, so it gives us some value of percolation into the soil when it's on the beach side.
But it could go elsewhere, right? On the property, underground elsewhere.
Yeah, it can be anywhere on the property, but this is for that and the landscaping component. And this is the preferred location of the owner, but as with most things, it can almost always be engineered differently.
Okay. Another thing I wanted to point out, and I know we asked about it at our site visit, George, Stephanie. So there's references to notes 7 and 8, see notes 7, 8, and 9, and it refers to the development setback and everything. Well, we never had, or at least I didn't get the list of notes. Did anybody else get that? Oh, so that came at 4:30. See, I didn't.
And we didn't prepare that particular drawing, so I can't speak to that. A lot of times, the survey base drawing has notes that they're referring to where they pulled information from, and sometimes that's left on drawings, but we didn't prepare that particular drawing, so I couldn't speak to those notes.
If I may, as I explained to Ragsdale on site, that notes that you saw on the base drawing, as Robert just explained, that is from the jurisdictional survey that shows
That's what we got at 4:30. That's what we got at 4:30 this afternoon. No, it wasn't in ours.
All right. Public hearing is over. No one else to speak. Commissioners?
You guys submit for CPA permit or DR permit wall yet?
we cannot apply until we get the conditional use permit to get the clean, non-conditional zoning letter which is required for the application for the connection. Referring that and pushing further down the line.
Can you, on that drawing, just, I don't know that you can do it with Stephanie's pointer or something, where is the retaining walls on the drawing?
Thanks.
So the retaining walls are here, sir, on the north and south property lines. You know, any terraces or anything here, this dark line here is the county setback line.
Understand.
So the area we're talking about is in here, the retaining walls are there, and they're at grade.
So there's no retaining wall on the property facing the ocean?
Out in here, sir?
Yeah.
Or anywhere? You're talking about in the,
Anywhere, that's what I'm saying. Where are the retaining walls?
It does say beginning of the retaining wall, right above the boxwood hedges, on the ladder looking thing, leading to the pool.
and I believe that's speaking to these,
Okay.
the retaining walls on the lines.
So it's only on the,
That's north and south.
it's only on the north and south sides?
Yes, sir.
There is no retaining wall on the east side of the property?
No, sir. Not to my knowledge. And I know we're speaking about these retaining walls here.
Well, if it's outside the line, you can do a retaining wall, correct?
Yes, sir.
Without a permit.
Yes, sir. Yeah, anything, you know, again, some of the questions that we discussed yesterday during the field that were related to what's going on the landward side of the development setback line. But out here, everything in white is, you know, Seashore Paspalum lawn. Everything in gray is Spartina and so Spanish bayonet. So it's all native landscaping with an underground storage system that will pose no threat to hurricanes. It's behind this large rock revetment, which has recently been covered with sand by the Sea Island Nourishment Project. And they've planted it with with, dune species, sea oats, and sand fencing to hold it. So there's no
Okay,
threat.
So with that understanding, my concern is, as I looked at the property yesterday, right now, there's a natural low spot that runs north-south across that property, and it runs to the property to the south. This proposal is putting a retaining wall at the either end of that low spot. It's filling it in with a underground storage facility so that any water that would normally be flowing north to south is going to be increased on those two properties because of the retaining walls that are being put in here.
That's the whole purpose of the on-site stormwater system, is to capture, and all the water within his site will stay on
You
his
told us
property.
yesterday the purpose of the underground storage tank was to collect the gutters from the house.
Gutter, and there's also lawn inlets that are incorporated to it.
But what about water that's coming from the property on the north or south of here that would right now flow through that low point?
It's always graded back towards the site.
I'm
Again,
sorry?
it's graded back towards the site. Other systems on Sea Island, there's a grade inlet in the yard like you would see at the end of a street that's incorporated in. Now, as Jonathan said, the design's not final yet, but that will be part of it. There's no, Sea Island's request to do this is to capture all of the stormwater generated on these larger lots and these new buildings that are larger than the other ones in the past, to make sure that they're not contributing to flooding of adjacent property and the ends of these streets. That's the whole purpose of it. So yes, it includes the yard runoff, and it includes the runoff off the gutter system.
But for me, intuitively, the stormwater that's collected on the site north and south of here is not going to have the same ability to flow through this site because of the retaining walls.
I'm not so sure that there's a lateral drainage pattern parallel to the ocean. It's certainly not by design. It may be on certain lots.
Well,
on Sea Island, but-
I'm just looking at the topography. I agree with you, but gravity's gravity.
Yeah. Again, the
I
purpose.
understand too that Sea Island had to approve this. Sea Island, they
Yes.
approve all architectural, all
Yes, sir.
conditions on Sea Island. They signed off on this?
Yes, sir.
No, I thought you said that they wouldn't approve, the Architectural Review Committee would not approve the project until you put in the stormwater drainage system with approval from us. And then what I think I've now what Michael asked, I now understand that you can't get a permit until you get approval from us. Yeah.
Yes, the DNR is waiting on this approval. Sea Island has already approved. Can you hear it? Sea Island Architectural Review has already approved the plan, but DNR is waiting on the zoning conditional use permit from the county prior to being able to grant a permit.
Yeah, I called Bill Edenfield on this because he's going to use all this, and he did approve it. Sorry about the microphone's going out.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion, please. I move we approve CP 4381 as designed.
Is there a second? Second. Mr. Forrest, second the motion. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand. 5, all opposed? 2, motion carried.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Ross, before you leave, I'd like to speak to you about another matter, not to do with any of this, but you can hang on, we're not going to be long, I hope. The past, granted the motion to the agenda, given up there to the Glynn, please, could we do that before?
Mr. Chair, in the interest of the hour, I'm willing to remove that if Stephanie could send us a written summary.
Yes, I can. I can do that.
All right, also,
Yep.
I just want to make a comment too. I hope that in this rewrite, we end up doing at some point in the future, we can get these jurisdictional lines consistent. It's confusing to have a county line and a DNR line. We need to hopefully do that. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Wait, can I say one quick thing? just because, I have not even looked at that information. I could not, I thought those were important questions that I had yesterday, and I didn't get to read it. So that's important for us to